Is there anything else that we need to address before we bring the jury in? Prosecution?
No, Your Honor. That was it.
Defense?
No, sir.
Okay, let's go ahead and bring them in.
No, she's. I don't understand this.
That's what I was just checking. Are you doing okay? Okay. All rise for the jury, please. That's okay. Yeah, yeah. Thank you. You may all be seated. Court will recall 20 CR 1358, People versus Letecia Stauch. Record should reflect the jury has returned to the courtroom. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to start our day the same way that we have every other day, and that is, has anything occurred since we were last together that causes any of you to believe you could not continue to serve as a fair and impartial juror? If so, please raise your hand. No response? All right. With that, prosecution, call next witness, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning. We would call Kelly Smith.
All right. Ms. Smith, if you would step forward and raise your right hand, please, ma'am. Good morning. You swear or affirm the testimony about to give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Go ahead and have a seat in the witness stand. Please watch your step as you step into the stand.
Good morning, ma'am. Will you please introduce yourself to our jury and spell your first and last name for the record?
Morning, I'm Kelly Smith, KELLY-SMITH.
And there's a microphone there. Slide it closer to you and try to speak into it so that everybody can hear you.
Okay,
Ms. Smith, who are you employed by?
Santa Rosa County Sheriff's Office.
What do you do for the Santa Rosa County Sheriff's Office?
I'm a crime scene technician,
And just because we don't have a Santa Rosa County here in Colorado, where is that?
Florida.
All right. What's the biggest city in that county?
Milton?
Milton? Okay. Is that very near to Pensacola?
Yes,
Okay. And Pensacola is in what county?
Escambia County, Florida.
All right. And I think you said that you're a crime scene technician, is that right?
Yes, sir.
What education do you have that allows you to do that job?
I have several crime scene classes, water classes, suicidal classes that I've taken for the job, and then a 40-hour class that they gave me when I started.
The 40-hour class, is that the basic crime scene investigation class?
Yes,
Was that in 2019?
yes, sir.
Did you also take a crime scene processing class in 2020?
Yes, sir.
You mentioned that you took a water class. Was that the aquatic abuse, death, and homicidal drowning investigations?
Yes,
Was that in 2021?
yes,
And then you said suicide investigations also? Is that right?
yes,
Okay.
sir.
Was that in 2022?
I believe so.
Let's see. What did you do before you became a crime scene technician for Santa Rosa County Sheriff?
I was still employed at the sheriff's office as a 911 dispatcher,
How long did you work as a dispatcher?
13 years.
What are the duties associated with being a crime scene technician for Santa Rosa County?
Documentation, photograph, collection of evidence, packaging of evidence to turn it in, We do dusting of the fingerprints and take DNA samples.
Is it common for you to actually go out to potential crime scenes?
Yes, sir.
Do you sometimes collect evidence from crime scenes?
Yes, sir.
Do you also occasionally attend autopsies?
Yes, sir.
Will you typically collect evidence from those autopsies
Yes, sir. And photograph.
and photographs? I want to direct your attention specifically to March 17th of 2020. Were you working as a crime scene technician back then?
Yes, sir.
Did you get a specific call to respond to the Escambia River Bridge on the report of a suitcase with a body inside of it?
Yes, sir.
What's that approximate location where you were called to?
The county line between Santa Rosa and Escambia.
And we had previous testimony from other people that had also gone to that bridge. It's sort of, if you look at a regular map with north being on the top, it looks like the bridge runs north to south, but it actually, I think, has a east-west lineage. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
And as far as where you responded to, was that on the west side of the bridge or the east side of the bridge?
East side of the bridge.
Is it typical for you when you go to a scene like that to get briefed by somebody that's familiar with the investigation up to that point?
Yes, sir.
Did you have that occur here?
Yes, sir.
Who briefed you?
I don't remember. I don't recall on that one. Who
Okay.
the first person I spoke to?
Was it by chance Detective Jason Yoder?
Yes.
What was the information that you received from Detective Yoder when you got that first briefing?
That they had located a suitcase with a body in it under the bridge.
Did you have a chance to make your own visual observations of that area?
Yes, sir.
Tell the jury just basically what you saw, and then at some point here in just a moment, we're going to get into some photographs.
I noticed we had to park on the other bridge, so I was able to look underneath the east bridge, and I just seen what appeared to be a suitcase and a material beside it from a distance. It just looked like material.
Did you have a chance also to view the scene from above, meaning on that bridge span looking down?
Yes.
Did it appear that the location where there was an indentation, that was where the suitcase was dropped from that bridge down to the ground below?
Yes, sir.
What color was that suitcase? Do you remember?
Olive green color.
Okay. Did you go up closer to the suitcase area?
Yes, sir.
You said that it looked like there was some fabric or something like that associated with the suitcase. When you got closer, could you tell what those things were?
You could see that it was a blanket and a body.
And then you mentioned earlier that it's very typical for you to take photos of scenes. Did you do that in this case?
Yes, sir.
At this point, I would like to approach and show the witness exhibit 77 through 85, which are
You may.
photographs.
All right, go ahead.
You could just look through people's exhibit 77 through 85 and then give me a heads up.
Yes, sir.
Do you recognize those?
Yes, sir.
What are they?
These are the pictures around the suitcase that I've taken.
At the scene at the Escambia River Bridge?
Yes, sir.
Are they fair and accurate representations as to what you saw that day?
Yes, sir.
At this time, I'd move for admission of people 77 through 85.
Defense,
No objection, Your Honor.
exhibit 77 through 85 will be admitted. Go ahead.
Permission to publish, Your Honor?
Give me just a minute, though.
Okay.
All right, go ahead.
So, Ms. Smith, this is going to be a little bit tricky for you, but I would like you to turn around in the witness stand there. Yep, you found the pointer. And then if you want to, you can actually stand up in the witness stand. But just please make sure when we're describing these photos that you speak loud enough so that the furthest juror from you can hear you.
Okay.
So point out for the jury what we're looking at there, please. And this is people's, I'm sorry, this is people 77 for the record.
These are the pylons to the bridge with the suitcase here, and from a distance, I could just tell it was material to the side of it.
Okay. And then people's exhibit 78.
Same thing. Suitcase with a different angle. I'm seeing on a different side of it.
Is that the way it appeared when you got up to the scene, that it was, everything had spilled out of the suitcase?
Yes, sir.
Okay. People's 79.
Just up close of the actual material and the victim here.
And, okay, and people's exhibit 80.
This is just the suitcase itself.
Was it apparent to you when you got on scene that there had been quite a bit of decomposition happening already?
Yes, sir, due to the coloring here and the bug activity that was there.
What kind of bug activity are we talking about?
Maggots.
Does that indicate that the suitcase had been out in this condition for a period of time?
Yes, sir.
People's exhibit 81. What are we looking at there?
This is what appeared to be a void spot. You were up on top of the bridge looking down. And then beside it, you could see everything's laid over and it's discolored, a little discolored from everything around it.
So is that looking from the span of the bridge down towards where the suitcase likely had dropped?
Yes,
Okay. And that's what it looked like for you when you stood there as well?
yes, sir.
82, I believe is this 82 or 81?
81.
81. So please put up 82. And is that just a close-up of that last photograph?
Yes, sir.
Did that suitcase have one wheel on it?
I don't recall.
Okay. People's exhibit 83.
Just a side view of the suitcase.
And do you see a wheel on that bottom left of that photo?
Yes, sir.
So if we go back to 82, does it appear that that really deeper indention there would coincide with that wheel potentially?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then people's 84.
The inside of the suitcase.
It's hard to tell in photographs, but was the inside of that suitcase wet?
Very.
Is that common to have, I guess, a wet area like that when a body's decomposing?
Yes, sir.
85.
The backside of the suitcase, and it's wet. That's what the discoloration is there. Some liquid coming out.
So that darker area below the wheel there is liquid that had leaked out on the ground?
Yes, sir.
Okay, you can take a seat again. And then that was on March 17th, correct?
Yes, sir.
Did you also attend the autopsy on March 18th?
Yes, sir.
So tell the jury, was the body that went to the autopsy the same body that you saw on scene on March 17th?
Yes, sir.
How could you tell?
The clothing was the same, the condition was the same, similar characteristics.
What about the blankets that you mentioned? Were those also at autopsy?
They were.
Did you collect a lot of those items during the autopsy?
I did.
All right. Do you also take photographs of the autopsy?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Where was that autopsy performed?
At Sacred Heart Hospital in Pensacola.
Was there a tentative identification done as to the remains that the autopsy was performed on?
Yes.
What was tentative identification made as?
Gannon,
Gannon
Stauch.
Stauch, okay. Your Honor, may I approach with people's 87 through 102?
Okay, go ahead.
Actually going up with people's exhibit 87 and then 90, 91, 92, 93, 94, 95, 96, 97, 98, 99, 100, 101, 102. So there's a gap for physical evidence that we'll be admitting as well.
So it's 87 and then it jumps to 89 through 102.
87 and then 90.
Okay, got it. All right, thank you.
Same thing as before. If you could just take a look at those and then give me a heads up. Have you had a chance to look at those?
Yes, sir.
What are they generally speaking?
Pictures from the autopsy.
Are
the
they fair
evidence.
of evidence?
Mhm.
Are they fair and accurate representations as to what you saw during this autopsy and things that you collected?
Yes, sir.
At this time, I'd move for admission of 87 and then 90 through 102.
Defense?
No objection, Your Honor.
Exhibits 87 and 90 through 102 will be admitted. Go ahead.
Permission to publish those, Your Honor.
May.
So we've got 87 up on the board behind you, and same as before, Ms. Smith, if you could just stand up and then let the jury know what we're looking at there.
This is gonna be the bullet that was extracted from the victim's head, and these two plastic pieces were in there.
So the bullet that we see there, that's a projectile.
Yes, sir.
Is that typically expelled out of the end of a firearm?
Yes, sir.
I know it seems obvious, but we got to be technical, right? What about those plastic pieces there? What do those appear to be?
From my understanding, they were part of the bullet.
Okay. And then you said that these were recovered during the autopsy. Do you remember where specifically?
Leave the head.
The head. And then I want to approach with people's 88 and 89.
Go ahead. No, that's fine.
So if you could first take a look at people's exhibit 88.
Okay.
You recognize this item?
Yes.
Does it appear to be in the same or substantially same condition today as the day that you collected it?
Yes, sir.
And what is it appear to be?
The projectile.
Same one that's in People's Exhibit 87?
Yes, sir.
Or at this time, I move for admission of People's 88.
Mr. Cook,
No objection, Judge.
Exhibit 88 will be admitted. Go ahead.
Slow down a little bit. Yes. And then I've got People's Exhibit 89 here in front of you. Do you recognize this item?
Yes.
Does it appear to be in the same or substantially same condition today as the day that you recovered?
Yes, sir.
What does it appear to be?
The red plastic pieces.
Same red plastic pieces that are in People's Exhibit 87?
Yes, sir.
At this time, I'd move for admission of People's Exhibit 89.
Mr. Cook,
No objection.
Exhibit 89 will be admitted.
If we can just have the witness display these to the jury by walking in front of the witness stand.
Where that's fine.
Box. Starting with the 88, if you could just hold this up like this and then just walk slowly in front of the jury box. And let's see if you can now do the same thing with People's Exhibit. Just set it on the table. Now, Ms. Smith, we're going to go back up to the photos to People's Exhibit 90. Tell the jury what we're looking at there, please.
That is the pillow that was located inside the suitcase.
Were there any defects apparent in that pillow?
Yes, there's a defect right here.
When we use the word defect, what do we mean?
Not if you wouldn't buy it with that in it. It's something that's occurred after the fact.
And can you tell by just looking at the defect in the pillow, what might have caused the defect? Or does more investigation needed?
More investigation.
In People's Exhibit 91,
This is the other side of the pillow. It was one of those that had reversible on each side. This one's wet with a discoloration. And I had some remnants on there for the decomp.
People's 92. What are we looking at here?
That's the projectile that was done on the x-ray machine
So is this actually an x-ray of that pillow itself?
of the pillow itself.
Are there actually two projectiles visible in that x-ray?
Over here in the white.
When we, again, just so that we're being technical and not leaving anything unsaid, when we say projectiles, are we again talking about bullets
Yes,
that were inside of this pillow?
correct.
People's 93?
That would be a close-up of the damaged part of the pillowcase.
Would that coincide potentially with a bullet being fired into that pillow?
Yes,
People's 94? What,
the same thing here with the defect right here on the pillow once we've taken the pillowcase off.
again, does that coincide with a bullet being fired into the pillow?
Yes, sir.
Obviously, we've seen the x-ray and the bullets were inside the pillow. Does that mean that there would not be any exit defects from the bullets?
Correct.
People's 95?
At up close of not the material, but the filling of the pillow, the damage that was done to it from the projectile.
Does that actually, can you see the projectile there as well?
Maybe a little bit right here.
Okay. People's 96?
Closer image of the damage done from the projectile.
And can you also see the projectile?
Here.
People's 97?
That would be one of the projectiles that was in the pillow that we got out.
People's 98?
Defect in the pillow from the projectile.
Is this a separate defect?
Yes, this is on the other side of the pillow.
People's Exhibit 99?
See, there's the defect.
So this defect that we're looking at here now is the pillow with the pillowcase removed. Is that right?
Here was the first one.
And then this defect coincides with that last defect in the pillowcase that we just looked at.
It's
People's 100?
closer shot. Pillowcase for the pillow.
People's 101?
Another shot with us cutting the material, and getting to the filling of the pillow.
And People's 102?
That would be the projectile that we pulled out.
So correct to understand that you were able to pull out two projectiles from the pillow itself?
Yes, sir.
At this time, I'd like to approach the witness with People's Exhibit 103.
You may, go ahead.
Same thing as before, Ms. Smith. Can you take a look at People's Exhibit 103? You recognize People's Exhibit 103?
Yes, sir.
What does it appear to be?
The two projectiles we pulled from the pillow.
Are they in the same condition today or roughly the same condition today as when you recovered them?
Yes, sir.
I move for admission of People's Exhibit 103.
Mr. Cook,
Objection.
Exhibit 103 will be admitted. Go ahead.
Permission to have the witness, this way.
That's fine. Step there.
Judge, at this point, I would ask for permission to approach the witness with People's Exhibits 104 through 120.
You may go ahead.
Yeah.
Ms. Smith, same as before, if you could flip through those exhibits 104 through 120 and then give me a heads up when you're done looking at them.
Yes, sir.
Do you recognize the photos 104 through 120?
Yes, sir.
Are those photographs that you took during the autopsy of Gannon Stauch on March 18th, 2020?
Yes.
Are they fair and accurate representations as to what you saw that day?
Yes.
You're going to move for admission and permission to publish 104 through 120.
Mr. Cook? Sure. Okay, all right. All right, court will exclude Exhibit 104 as cumulative. Court will admit Exhibits 105 through 120.
And permission to publish starting with 105 and through 120. Well, if you just,
You may go ahead.
okay, same as process as before, Ms. Smith. If you could just stand up and tell us what we're looking at here. First, in a general sense, what are we looking at?
This is the t-shirt that the victim was wearing when we located him.
Did this T-shirt have a number of defects in it that coincided with injuries that the victim had on his body?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so when we're looking at People's Exhibit 105, there's obviously some graphics on the T-shirt, correct?
Yes, sir.
And then there's that angular measuring device there. Is that signifying, as we look through these photos, where specific defects were in the shirt?
Yes.
So can you point out the defect that we're looking at first in 105?
The defect here is gonna be right here. There's cotton, white cotton behind it to help make it stand out.
And then if we go to 106, is that a close-up of that same defect?
That is a close-up of the same defect.
107,
Here, now we're here.
sort of where it says Minecraft over the R, it looks like.
Yes.
And then 108,
Yeah, close to that defect.
109. Those first two, would that coincide roughly with the left chest area, lower left chest area?
Yes.
And now would that coincide with, I guess, left shoulder area,
Yes.
collarbone maybe? And then 110,
Close-up of that same image
111,
to the arm. Here.
the sleeve of the arm,
Yes, left arm.
okay? And then 112,
Close-up of that same defect.
113,
Up to here.
so are we still looking at the left sleeve, just upper portion of that sleeve?
Yes.
114, I think,
Up close. Up that one.
115,
Turn the shirt over. And this would be the defect.
that appears to be a larger defect than the others, is that correct?
Yes.
And then 116,
Close version.
117,
Left arm again, back side.
118,
Up close.
119.
And that one just moved up to here.
And then are we looking at the backside for both of those last couple of photos, the backside of the left sleeve?
Yes.
120,
Up close of that one.
left sleeve again?
Yes, sir.
All right, if you could go ahead and sit down. Or may I approach with People's Exhibit 121 through 141?
You may go ahead. Right.
Go ahead and flip through those and then let me know when you're done.
Okay,
Do you recognize those photographs?
yes, sir.
What are those photographs of?
The jacket the victim was wearing when we located him.
To sort of contrast what we just looked at, the t-shirt was a basic cotton t-shirt with the graphic writing on it.
Yes,
This jacket that we're going to look at next, is it more of a nylon type jacket?
yes,
Is it the jacket that the victim was wearing that you recovered at autopsy?
yes,
Are these fair and accurate representations as to what you saw of that jacket at the autopsy on March 18th, 2020?
yes.
And at this time, I move for admission of 121 through 142 and permission to publish.
Mr. Cook?
It's done. We moved it to the bench.
Okay.
About his,
Council approach, please. All right, exhibits 121 through 142 are admitted.
Permission to publish, Your Honor.
You may go ahead.
So Ms. Smith, same as before, 121 should be up on the screen here in just a moment. So tell the jury what we're looking at in 121.
This is the jacket the victim was wearing when we located him.
Is this the inside of the jacket, so the lining of the jacket?
Yes, sir.
So point out where you can see any defects in this jacket.
One, here, here, here. This appears to be one here.
Okay. And then moving on to 122.
Up close to that first one that I pointed.
And would this generally be, since we're looking at the lining of the jacket, would this essentially mean that this would coincide with the victim's back area?
Yes,
Okay. 123,
close to that one.
124,
Showing the defects right there.
again, is this still looking at the lining of the jacket, which would generally coincide with the back of the victim?
Yes, sir.
125,
Close to that one.
126,
Over here, same back side of the victim.
127,
Up close.
128.
We're here, now we're over here. It's still the same on the back side, and this is the lining.
Sort of would this coincide roughly with the back shoulder? It looks like it's closer to the sleeve here.
Yes.
129,
Up close to that one.
130,
Right, right.
so is this getting closer to the top of the shoulder area of the jacket?
Yes, sir.
Still, are we looking at the lining of the jacket?
Yes, sir.
131,
Close to that one.
132,
Gonna be the hood with some defects here.
are we looking at the lining of the hood?
Yes.
Okay, 133,
Like I pointed to.
134,
Second one that I
136. And those last couple, also the inside lining of the hood.
Correct.
Okay. 137.
This will be the back of the jacket.
Is this just an, oh, I'm sorry.
Here, one here.
Essentially an overview of the back of the jacket.
Yes.
138,
The first one that I,
139,
second one that I pointed to. Still on the back of the jacket.
140,
Here, now we're over
141,
still here.
and then 142.
Here's the feedback. I was trying to see where we're at on the jacket.
Does it appear that this is closer to the zipper?
Yes,
Can you see the zipper there at the top?
here's the zipper.
Okay. Thank you. And Your Honor, now I would like to approach the witness with People's Exhibit 143.
All right, you may go ahead.
You had a chance to look at People's 143? Do
Yes, sir.
you recognize it?
Yes, sir.
What does it appear to be?
Pair of pants.
Photo of the pair of pants?
Correct.
Are these the pants that the victim was wearing when you went to the scene on March 17th and then the autopsy on March 18th?
Yes, sir.
Did you also collect those items?
I did.
Is it a fair and accurate representation of the pants as you saw them on March 18th?
Yes.
And at this time, I would move for admission and permission to publish 143.
Exhibit 143 will be admitted. Go ahead.
Permission to publish, there we go. Just generally give us are these nylon sort of athletic pants?
Yes.
Does it appear that there's, it's hard to tell, right? There's a lot of staining on this from decomp, I would assume.
Yes, sir.
But does it also appear that there's white stripes running down the legs of these pants?
Yes, 2 on each side.
Can you point those out for the jury, please?
Here's one right here, and then the other one's right here.
Okay. All of these items that we just looked at, so the pillow, the blankets, the t-shirt, the hoodie, and these pants. I think it may be obvious, but were these heavily soiled with decomposition from Gannon's remains?
Yes.
Associated with that heavy decomposition, was there quite a smell associated with them?
Yes.
Is that why we're not bringing those items into the jury to let them have to deal with that as well?
Yes.
Your Honor, finally, would like to have my investigator approach the witness with People's Exhibit number 86.
All right, may go ahead.
And just so that we're all clear, this is the item that we talked about prior to.
Okay. Is there any objection as to the foundational issue of this defense? Okay. Mr. Allen?
So, Ms. Smith, our investigator Cecil Weir is going to help with this item because of the size of it. But if you could just take a look at it and let me know if you recognize People's Exhibit 86.
Oh, wow. I'm surprised this is brought in like this. I don't think I expected that.
And I didn't hear your question over the paper.
Yeah, that paper was allowed. Do you recognize People's Exhibit 86?
I do.
What does it appear to be?
The olive green suitcase that was at the scene
Did you collect this scene at the River Bridge or was it at autopsy?
at the River Bridge.
Okay. Does it appear to be in the same or substantially the same condition today as the day that you recovered it?
Yes.
Your Honor, at this time, I'd move for admission of People's Exhibit 86.
Mr. Cook?
Objection.
Exhibit 86 will be admitted. Go ahead.
Your Honor, because of the decomposition material on this item, we are asking for permission to not leave this here in the courtroom, but I would like to have permission for our investigator, Mr. Weir, to show this item to the jury by holding it up. It is a larger item.
You may.
Uh-huh.
Go ahead.
Thank you.
In case you missed it, this is the pillowcase that they found with Gannon. This is the suitcase that Gannon was found in. Look at coward Letecia over there with her head down and her hair over her face, not looking at it. I feel like they should make her pick her head up and actually look at this stuff.
Thank you, ma'am. Does that suitcase have a broken handle on it as well?
Yes, sir.
If Mr. Weir holds that up, can you point that out to the jury?
This one right here. Attached.
And then just so that we're all clear, although I think it's probably fairly obvious, but we need to build a record as well. All of the items that you saw out at the Escambia River Bridge, so the 2 blankets, the pillow, and Gannon's remains inside of this suitcase?
Correct.
And if I wasn't clear before, the clothing that I mentioned and that had heavy decomposition material on them, was that true also for the blankets and the pillow?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. And so at this point, Judge, I would ask if we can just have our investigator take that item back out before it starts to,
Is there an objection?
No, Your Honor.
All right, you may, go ahead. Just take it out.
he's trying to collect the baggage or the paper too. Stephanie? All right, Ms. Smith, just a couple more questions for you. How long have you lived in that, I guess, greater Pensacola area?
45 years.
Are you familiar with several bridges in that area?
Yes.
The Escambia River Bridge obviously is the one that we've been talking about today, correct?
Yes, sir.
Is there also an I-10 bridge
Yes.
and then a 98 Pensacola Bay Bridge essentially? Of those bridges in the area, is the Escambia River Bridge less traveled or more traveled than the other bridges?
Less.
Less traveled. Are you also familiar with I-95?
Yes.
Where's I-95?
It goes along the east coast of Florida.
Okay. You know what, that would be my questions for this witness.
Cross-examination, Mr. Cook?
Your Honor, I don't have any questions for this witness. Thank you.
All right. Do any of the jurors have any questions for Ms. Smith? Just write it down, pass it forward. Looks like we might have a couple, so just write them down, pass them forward, and I'll have somebody collect them.
Letecia must have been pretty strong to have thrown the
me to
suitcase over the
repeat them,
bridge
Your
by
Honor?
herself.
Yes, yeah, just put them on the bar in front of you there, pass them forward.
if you
put them on
missed
the
it,
bar in
that
front of you,
suitcase
and then
is
Mr. Allen, if
huge.
you would retrieve those, please, and counsel approach. Ms. Smith, was the suitcase cleaned? It appears cleaner.
No, it was not cleaned. It was kind of hard to see through the plastic.
Right, and this is a timeline question. You visited the discovery site on March 17 of 2020. And the autopsy was on March 18 of 2020. Let's start there. Are those 2 dates accurate?
Yes,
And so you already knew on March 18 of 2020 that it was Gannon?
they didn't know for sure. They went by some pictures, and then I'm not sure what their procedures are for identification.
All right. I will allow reasonable follow-up as to those questions only. Mr. Allen?
Just on that last question, when we were talking about identification of the remains, was that just a tentative identification,
Yes,
not a finalized identification? Do you know that a finalized identification came sometime later?
yes.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Cook? All right. Thank you, Ms. Smith. You may step down. Prosecution, call your next witness, please.
So the defense had no questions for that witness. Only the jurors had a few questions.
Morning, Your Honor. People call Trevor Seifert to the stand.
Mr. Seifert, if you would step forward and raise your right hand, please, sir. Do you swear affirm the testimony about to give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Go ahead and have a seat in the witness stand. Please watch your step as you step into the stand.
Morning.
Good morning.
Could you please introduce yourself to the jury and spell your first and last name?
My name is Trevor Seifert, spelled Trevor Seifert.
I just mispronounced your name, so
Oh.
I apologize.
That's okay.
What is your occupation?
I am a senior crime laboratory analyst with the Florida Department of Law Enforcement.
And how long have you been with the Florida Department of Law Enforcement?
Just over 17 years.
And what are your specific roles within that title?
Up until September of last year, I was in the biology section of the Pensacola Regional Operations Center. And in the biology section, we do DNA analysis.
And what kind of experience and training do you have in the field of DNA analysis?
Education-wise, I have a Bachelor's of Science in Biology from Southern Oregon University and a PhD in microbiology and immunology from the University of Florida. At the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, I also went through a one-year training program in forensic biology.
And does the field of DNA analysis include the field of forensic DNA analysis?
Yes.
And have you been practicing in that field within the role that you just described? And approximately how many investigations have you been involved in where you've done some DNA testing in the field of forensic DNA analysis?
Hundreds of cases, and we actually count the number of samples that we analyze, and it's well over 8,000.
And do you have some continuing education that you participate in to stay up to date in that field?
Yes, we have required annual continuing education, and we keep up to date with current literature.
And have you been qualified as an expert in a court of law to testify in the field of forensic DNA analysis?
Yes, in the Florida 1st and 14th Circuit,
Approximately how many times?
approximately 55.
First time in Colorado, I take it?
Testifying, yes.
Okay. At this time, we'd ask the court to allow Mr. Seifert to testify in the field of forensic DNA analysis as an expert.
No objection. All right, just a minute. Ladies and gentlemen, a person may be qualified as an expert by education, experience, skill, or training. You are not bound by the testimony of a witness who has testified as an expert. The credibility of an expert's testimony is to be considered as that of any other witness. You may believe all of an expert witness's testimony, part of it, or none of it. The way you give the testimony is entirely your decision. Mr. Young?
Thank you, Andrew. Could you please educate us in the field of DNA? What is DNA? Where does it come from? That kind of thing.
Sure, DNA stands for deoxyribonucleic acid. It is a molecule that is found in every cell of your body except for mature red blood cells. It carries the instructions for the development structure of all living organisms. At FDLE, Florida Department of Law Enforcement, we do what is called STR DNA analysis. And STR stands for short tandem repeats. Short tandem repeats vary between individuals, and the number of repeats at markers that we look at are what differ between individuals and create their unique profile. We look at 21 different areas in the DNA, which I'll call markers, and 3 gender markers that can tell us whether the DNA is consistent with a male or a female. In order to develop a DNA profile, I will take a sample from biological material and do chemical processes which will break open the cells, releasing the DNA into a solution. Then place this solution onto an instrument that quantifies the amount of DNA that I was able to obtain from the sample. And if I reach a high enough threshold, I can then use a process called polymerase chain reaction, which amplifies each of the 21 markers that I'm looking at millions of times with a fluorescent tag that enables another instrument, a genetic analyzer, to measure the length of each of these fragments, which determines the number of markers, or number of short tandem repeats, and gives us a profile for the individual or the sample.
Can you talk to the jury about the uniqueness of these profiles that you've been talking about?
Yes, depending on the number of markers that I'm able to generate a profile from, statistics differ with how unique it will be. But overall, a DNA profile of an individual is unique to that individual, and only a identical sibling will have the same DNA profile.
And where do we get this uniqueness from? Where does our DNA come from?
Half of your DNA comes from your mother, half of your DNA comes from your father. And so the combination of the DNA from both, so you have 2 copies of DNA, 2 copies of these markers. And so at each of these markers, I will get a number of repeats. So one marker may have 5, let's say 5 of these short tandem repeats from your mother and 10 from your father. So at that marker, you would be considered a 5-10. And what we're looking at when we're comparing profiles from a questioned sample to a known individual, we're looking at those numbers and matching those numbers.
So if we have, for instance, a body found where we don't know who that person is, would we be able to create a profile if the DNA was in good shape and then determine who the parents of that individual were, or vice versa?
Yes, we can.
When we talk about the field of forensic DNA analysis, I think you just alluded to it a little bit in your previous answer. Are we talking about having a known DNA profile and then unknown DNA profiles to figure out if there's a match or if there's some consistency between the two?
Yes, so in most cases, we're dealing with evidence from a crime scene, looking for a suspect. So we're looking for the DNA profile from the evidence and then comparing it with DNA profile from an individual said to be involved in the case. In other cases, we're looking at unidentified human remains and comparing that to DNA profiles from individuals that are in a missing persons database.
And so is there databases in the United States, for instance, where there's DNA profiles for unsolved crimes, things like that, where if you develop a profile, you can compare that to a database to see if there's a match?
Yes, there are.
And do agencies across the country submit DNA profiles to those databases?
Yes.
Now, where does this DNA come from? What do people leave behind where you might be able to obtain DNA profiles from?
Well, the majority of it is bodily fluids, blood, semen, saliva, tissue, and we can also obtain DNA from items that people have worn or handled, so epithelial cells or skin.
You alluded to earlier about crime scenes. Are there particular crime scenes that might deteriorate DNA?
Yes, DNA is stable in dry and cold environments. When it's out in the natural environment, DNA is degraded by the human body. Once a cell dies, it releases enzymes that breaks up the DNA. Microorganisms also break up DNA. So in hot, humid, wet or damp environments, the DNA is degrading rapidly.
I'm going to take you back to 2020, in particularly March 17th of 2020. Were you familiar with a body that was discovered underneath the Escambia Bridge there by Pensacola, Florida, around that time frame?
Yes, I was.
And after autopsy and into the investigation, were you asked to conduct some DNA analysis to confirm the identity of this individual who was found deceased under the bridge?
Yes.
Tell the jury about that. What did you do? And we'll get into your results in a second.
In the first submission of evidence that I received from our medical examiner, I received buccal swabs, which are swabbings from the inside of the cheek of an individual, and a card with a couple drops of blood. I then performed the analysis that I already explained, where I took samples from each, broke open the cells in solution, and attempted to obtain DNA profiles. The blood sample did not give me enough DNA to amplify and get a profile. And the buccal swab gave me enough DNA to attempt to develop a profile. However, the results were so low that I could not interpret the results.
And what was your understanding of the condition? Did you later determine that this was Gannon-Stauch?
Yes.
I'm just going to use Gannon-Stauch as who we're talking about here. Did you learn about the condition of Gannon-Stauch's body as it laid underneath that bridge, February to March of 2020?
Yes, I heard that it was a body in a suitcase, and based upon the condition of the initial evidence that I received, the buccal swab and blood stain, I could tell that it was a decomposing body.
And was it surprising to you that you were not able to get enough DNA from the buccal swabs and the blood card from autopsy to develop a profile?
No, not at all.
Why is that?
During decomposition, the DNA breaks down, and usually we have to go to a harder tissue such as a bone or teeth.
And is it because of the deterioration that you alluded to earlier, Gannon's body being under the bridge by water in the humidity and heat of Florida?
Yes, and the amount of time.
And I think you just said you had to go to some bone. Tell us about what you did with the bone and why did you go to the bone?
Yes, next I received a rib bone, and I took numerous samples from the rib bone at separate times. So initially, I swabbed some of the tissue on the rib bone, took a cutting of the rib bone, and went through the process of trying to get DNA from those. The swabbing of the tissue resulted in not enough DNA to go any further. The cutting from the tissue, I again got a very low amount of DNA, but was not able to interpret a profile. So I went back to the bone again, broke it open and removed marrow, and went through the DNA analysis again, and again was only able to obtain information, but not enough to interpret. Went back to the bone again and actually took pieces of the bone and did a longer process. It takes several days to get a DNA profile from. And with that, I was able to get a partial profile. So a complete profile is information at all 21 of the markers we're looking at. And with this partial profile, I was able to get information at 9 markers. So the difference between the markers is the length. So the longer a marker is, the more likely it's going to be chopped up and not give us any information.
And so when you were able to get these 9 markers you alluded to, this was from a rib bone, correct?
Correct.
Did you also have at least information that there was a tentative identification that this was Gannon-Stauch?
Yes, I did.
And did you also have indication that there was a DNA profile developed for Gannon-Stauch here in Colorado Springs at the Metro Crime Lab.
Yes.
Did you contact the Metro Crime Lab with the 9 markers or the profile that you developed from the rib bone to see whether or not there was a match with the known profile from Gannon Stauch that we had here in Colorado Springs?
Yes, I did.
And what was the results of that?
I received confirmation back from them that they had a match with the profile that I generated from the rib bone and a case here.
And what does that mean?
That means that the markers that I obtained a profile from matched a standard or a DNA profile that they had developed here in this case.
Was that confirmation, at least for you, that that was the body of Gannon Stauch?
Yes, if it were a case that I was working through to the end, I would have continued working to obtain a complete profile from the remains. And then I would also need to obtain whatever piece of evidence they used to get the complete profile from here in Colorado and compare those myself and then perform statistics, which would give you a likelihood ratio on how good of a match it was.
And do you know whether or not anyone from Colorado Springs did exactly what you just described?
I assume that they did, but I do not know.
Essentially, when you made this determination that the 9 profiles from the rib bone matched the known profile for Gannon Stauch, did the El Paso County Sheriff's Office and the Metro Crime Lab here in Colorado Springs kind of take it from there and take over the investigation?
Yes.
Those are my questions, Your Honor. Thank you.
Cross-examination, Mr. Tellini?
No question.
Do any of the jurors have any questions for Mr. Seifert? Sorry. No, all right. Thank you, Brady. You may step down. Council approach, please.
It travels.
Okay, so real quick, that was Trevor Seifert. He's a DNA analyst in Florida. He said that he could not get enough DNA originally because the
All right,
body was so
prosecution for your next witness,
decomposed.
please.
Was so decomposed.
Last name again?
Heck.
Heck. Thank you.
Hack. I'm sorry. PAC.
The body was so decomposed that he then tested the rib bone multiple times.
Ms. Pack, if you would step forward and raise your right hand, please, ma'am. Up here. You swear from the testimony about to give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Go ahead and have a seat in the witness stand. Please watch your step as you step into the stand.
Morning.
Good morning.
How are you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good. Could you introduce yourself to the jury and spell your last name for the record?
Alexis Pack, P-A-C-K.
And where do you live, Miss Pack?
Pensacola, Florida.
First time in a courtroom?
Yes.
Everyone's really nice in here, I promise, okay?
Okay.
Miss Pack, what do you do for a living?
I just stay at home now. I did work at the hotel as a front desk agent.
Okay. And when you say the hotel, are you talking about the Candlewood
Candle-
Suites?
Yes, sir.
And which Candlewood Suites did you work at?
The one in Pensacola on Davis Highway.
And how long were you working there?
I worked there for 3 years.
Were you working there back on February 4th of 2020?
Yes, sir.
And as part of that job at the front desk, would you routinely check people in, check people out, that kind of thing?
Yes, sir.
And would you fill out paperwork as you did that?
Yes.
May I approach the witness, Your Honor?
Me?
Handy what's been marked as People's Exhibit 181. And it's in a plastic folder. You can pull out that document if you like. I believe it's a 3-page document. Do you recognize that?
Yes.
And what is that?
It's the form that they fill out whenever they check in.
And did you fill that form out?
I did not.
Who filled that form out? Do you know?
It's the person who checks in. they fill it out.
Let me have you turn to page 3 of that document. You see that computer printout?
Yes.
Do you see your name on that computer printout?
Yes.
Do you see the name of the person who checked someone in on that computer printout?
I do.
Okay. So tell us about that. Who checked this person in that's related to this document, and then who checked them out?
So there was a lady named Sharon who worked there who checked her in, and I checked her out.
And are these documents that you use with anytime someone checks in or checks out of the hotel?
Yes.
And are these routinely used in the course of business at the Candlewood Suites?
Yes.
And does this accurately depict the check-in and check-out or the person named in this document back on February 4th, 2020?
Yes.
We would move to admit People's Exhibit 181.
Defense.
Objection.
Exhibit 181 will be admitted. Go ahead.
And before we publish that, I'd like to show you another exhibit if I may approach, John.
You may.
Show you People's Exhibit 221. It's already been admitted into evidence. You recognize this overhead photo here?
Yes.
And I don't want to be Captain Obvious here, but there's a label that says Candlewood Suites there.
Yes.
Do you recognize that? Is that where the hotel is located at?
Yes.
And is that where you were working on February 4th, 2020 when this person checked in?
So I don't think I was working when she checked in, but when she checked out.
Did she check out on February 4th, 2020?
So I'm not sure if she checked out with me or if the housekeeping staff told me she was gone, and that's why I checked her out.
We'll get to that in a second.
Okay.
Just for the record, I'll publish to the jury again. Okay, we can publish People's Exhibit 181 now. It's kind of tough to see on the TV screens. Can we zoom in on that a little bit, please? So let's start with the top part of that exhibit, and you can look at the one, the actual exhibit in front of you, if you like.
Okay.
What is the name of the person who checked in back on February 4th, 2020?
I don't know how to say the last name,
Okay.
but it's Letecia Stauch.
Okay, you did a pretty good job with the last name. And again, I know it says there, but where is this person from, at least what they're saying when they check in?
South Carolina.
And they, does this information also show the method of how they paid for the room and things like that?
Yes.
Down below it says, where it says reservation information,
Mhm.
it says company and it says Ford Motor Company. Where did that come from? Do you know?
So that's a fixed rate we would have had in the system for that company.
And so whoever is getting the reservation, would they have to tell whoever's working the front desk that I'm with the Ford Motor Company to check in?
So yes, or if they make it online, they can put that in themselves if they have the rate code.
But you get that from the person, whoever's making the reservation. That's not something you just put in there.
No.
If we go down a little bit, can we just scan down that first page? Right there's good, thanks. Is there information when they check in to describe what vehicle they're driving?
Yes.
And what kind of vehicle did the person say they were driving, or this Letecia Stauch say they were driving?
A Nissan Altima.
And does anybody check to see if that's accurate?
No, sir.
If we can now go to page 2 of that document. Again, we have page 2 of this exhibit. Again, Ford Motor Company, is that again the same information
Yes.
that you get from the person who's checking in?
Yes.
Can we go back to the first page? I forgot to mention something on that. Thanks. Or just the top part. Appreciate it. You're familiar with the rooms there at the hotel?
Yes.
What is a standard suite one queen non-smoking mean?
It's just one queen bed.
Standard room, I take
Yeah.
it? Okay. I went to law school, so that's how I come up with these great questions. Can we go to page 3 of that document now? We rotate that so we can, I'm asking you to do a lot. I appreciate that, Ms. Grantiano. It won't rotate, huh? All right. Well, let's look at this page here. Does it have the times that the person actually checked in and the times they checked out?
Yes, sir.
Could you please tell the jury the time that Miss Stauch checked in to the hotel?
It looks like it was 12:23, I think.
Okay. And you base that on the 0023 that we see on the document?
Yes, sir.
And that would have been on what date?
February 4th, 2020.
And then your name is associated with the checkout. What time did this individual check out?
11:11.
And that top line, I know we can't see it because it's documented. Could you read what the description says?
Where it says checkout.
It says Stauch, Letecia.
Okay, it says Stout Letecia checking out on 2/4/20, having arrived 2/3/20.
Now, does that indicate when the reservation was actually made?
Yes,
And so the actual checkout time would have been what is documented on this page.
correct.
Can you tell by looking at this page what time the reservation was actually made?
11:43.
So roughly a half an hour before she actually physically checked in?
Yes.
Does this document indicate to you how many guests would have been checked in on that date?
No.
If you go down to that back to the first page, kind of the second area on that first page, we can zoom in on that, please. Thanks. We'll have to scroll up a little, please. And keep going. Yep, there we go, right there. Do you see where it says number of guests?
Yes.
What does it say there?
1.
And do you know when this document was signed? Was it when they check in or when they check out?
When they check in.
Those are my questions, John. Thanks.
Cross-examination.
Thank you. Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning.
My name is Will Cook. I'm an attorney for the defense. I'm going to ask you a few questions, okay?
Okay.
So you had nothing to do with the check-in in this case,
No, sir.
okay? And you can't remember if you actually checked out on February 4th
No,
or the 5th, this Letecia Stauch?
no, sir.
Would you be able to recognize the person that checked out or you checked out on that date?
No, sir.
Okay. In fact, you may not have ever even seen this person.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Redirect.
No, thanks, John.
Do any of the jurors have any questions for Ms. Pack? No? Great. Thank you, ma'am. You may step down. Watch your step as you step down. All right. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take our morning recess until about 10:45. If I can have all of the jurors back in the jury room at 10:45, we should be able to start on time at that point. Again, don't discuss the case among yourselves. Don't discuss the case with anyone else. And with that, we'll see you back at 10:45. All rise for the jury, please. Thank you. You may all be seated. Is there anything we need to take up outside the presence of the jury at this point in time?
For record purposes, Judge, the one item that you excluded as cumulative, I think that was 104. Do you want us to take it out of that pile of photos?
Yes, please.
Yep, so we'll do that over the break.
Okay, all right. Defense?
Nothing at this.
Okay, all right. Court will be in recess. Thank you.
All right. They just went to recess for about 20 minutes. Thank you so much for joining me this morning. Their first witness was female Kelly Smith, and she was a crime scene tech analyst for Santa Rosa County, Florida Sheriff's Office. And she was on the scene when they discovered the suitcase. And so she discussed the pillowcase that was found with them. She said that the stench, the odor was so horrible. And for that reason, it was not brought into the courtroom for the evidence part. They brought out the suitcase that Gannon was found in. The suitcase was huge. Then the next witness was Trevor Seifert. He is a DNA analyst with the Florida Department of Law Enforcement. He said that he could not get enough DNA originally because Gannon's body was so just decomposed. So then he tested his rib bone multiple times, and the swabbing of the tissue there wasn't enough, and neither was cutting it. So they moved on to the bone marrow, and they still didn't get enough DNA from that. He went back to the rib bone again and used pieces of it instead. And they were able to get a partial profile that matched to Gannon. And during that time, Letecia seemed to listen pretty intently to what he had to say. Whereas earlier when Kelly was on the stand and they brought out the suitcase and stuff, Letecia did what she has been doing and turned her head, put her hair over her face, and refused to look at anything. There was no questions from the defense and no juror questions with that witness. And then the last witness was Alexis Pack, and she worked the front desk at Candlewood Suites in Pensacola, Florida. She checked Letecia out of that hotel on February 4th, 2020. She said that Letecia basically, so she made her reservation online. And that was made on February 3rd, 2020 at about 11:43 p.m. And then Letecia checked in to that hotel around 12:23 a.m., February 4th. So just about 30 minutes after she made her online reservation. And when she did make the online reservation, she used a Ford Motor Company rate code to receive a discount. And she also said that she was from South Carolina. Well, we know she was from Colorado, but Letecia can't tell the truth about anything. So Letecia also said that, when they ask what vehicle you're driving, and usually they want a license plate number and stuff, Letecia told them she was driving a Nissan Altima. That was not true either. She rented a room with just one queen bed. And when she did check in, she put down that only one person would be on her in her room. So basically just her. She didn't add Harley to that. I wonder why You know, what would it have mattered if she'd added Harley to it? Harley was with her. So one queen bed, one person in the hotel room, a Ford Motor Company discount rate, and said she was driving a Nissan Altima. The defense did a short cross-examination and asked if Alexis recognized Letecia, which she did not, and also asked if she remembered checking her out of the hotel, which she did not remember that either. So that has been the morning. Like I said, they are on a break for about 15 minutes. I appreciate you guys all being here. If you haven't, please like this video. I'd appreciate it. And does anybody have any questions? Were you able to watch all of it? When I saw the suitcase, my first thought was it was so huge. And how did she get it off that bridge all by herself? And if you missed that part, it was really in the very beginning of this video. It would be super easy to find. That is when Kelly Smith was on the stand. In that one, the jurors did ask a couple questions. I didn't write their questions down. I apologize. But one of them was, had the suitcase been cleaned? They said it looked a little different than what it did originally. And Kelly said, no, it had not been cleaned at all. So what do you guys think so far? And remember, this case really isn't a question of whether or not she's guilty. It's whether or not she suffered from dissociative identity disorder at the time, and was she considered insane at the time of the crime. They already know she's guilty. All right. Well, if you guys don't have any questions, go grab a quick drink, a snack, and we will meet back here in just about 15 minutes when they resume after their morning break.
All right, court will recall 20 CR 1358, People versus Letecia Stauch. Record should reflect the jury's not present in the courtroom. Is there anything we need to take up outside the presence of the jury at this point in time? Prosecution,
No, Your Honor, thank you.
defense? All right, let's go ahead and bring the jury back in. All rise for the jury, please. Court will recall 20 CR 1358, People versus Letecia Stauch. Record should reflect the jury has returned to the courtroom. Prosecution, call your next witness, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. We would call Jason Hess, Hess.
Thank you. Officer Hess, if you would step forward and raise your right hand, please, sir. Do you swear affirm the testimony about to give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, sir.
Go ahead and have a seat in the witness stand. Please watch your step as you step into the stand.
Good morning, sir. Good morning. Will you please introduce yourself to the jury and spell your name for the record?
My name is Jason Hess. I'm a lieutenant with the El Paso County Sheriff's Office. Last name Hess.
How long have you been with the El Paso County Sheriff's Office?
For 26 years.
What kind of roles have you served on with the Sheriff's Office?
I've been a deputy assigned to detentions, assigned to the patrol division, the SWAT team, a supervisor for the SWAT team, a supervisor on patrol, both sergeant role and a lieutenant.
What was your employment back in January of 2020?
I was a sergeant assigned to the patrol division.
What are duties associated with a assigned to patrol?
For patrol, we're responding to calls for service, proactive policing, traffic enforcement, and general community concerns.
Is it fairly common to have a lot of contact with members of the community?
Yes, it is.
Some point, did you get involved in the Gannon Stauch missing child investigation?
Yes, I did.
What was your role in that investigation?
I was at the office of the sheriff performing some administrative duties and became aware of the call that had occurred the night before and that an 11-year-old Gannon was reported missing that night. And I started making some phone calls to help further that.
Excuse me, just so we're understanding when this exactly happened, you referenced the night before.
January 28th is when I became aware of it.
So you became aware on January 28th?
Yes.
And the call actually occurred on January 27th
Correct.
of 2020?
Correct.
Did you have an occasion to call a female at a particular phone number that you understood to be the stepmother of Gannon?
Yes, I did.
You remember the phone number that you called?
I do not remember the phone number.
Yeah, okay, we'll come back to that. How did you obtain that phone number?
It was from the previous call for service records that we have internally from the call that had occurred.
When you called the person, did that person expect you to be calling, or was this just a cold call?
It was a cold call. I was just following up on information.
Who were you trying to get a hold of?
I was trying to get a hold of the parents of Gannon or the person that had called in the original report, Letecia.
Did you identify the person that answered the phone?
Yes, as best you can over the phone by just asking questions.
So what, describe male or female?
Female.
Did you have subsequent contact with that person face to face?
Yes,
The voice that you heard on that particular call, did that coincide with a person that you met face to face?
yes, from what I could tell.
And so the person that you were talking to on that phone call, who was that person?
Letecia.
Letecia Stauch?
Yes.
What did you want to gather from Letecia Stauch at that particular time?
The first thing I wanted to know is had Gannon returned home? And if he had not, had she learned any information or got any other information as to where he might be?
What information did Letecia Stauch give you during that phone call?
That he had not returned home and she had no further information.
Did she also make reference to the fact that deputies had searched the home the night before?
Yes, one of the procedures that we do is to conduct a search, and I wanted to make sure that had occurred. So I asked her if deputies had searched the home, and she said that they had.
Did you get from her permission to put Gannon's photo out in the media?
Yes, I did.
Did she give you a photo or did you already have one?
I do not recall if I asked her to send one or if one was obtained during the original report, but we did have a photo, and I provided that to our public information officer to push that out to media and social media resources to get his photograph out there and available.
And did that in fact occur that a photo of Gannon was pushed out?
Yes, pretty quickly that occurred.
Did you do any searches yourself on that January 28th day?
Yes, after the photo went out to the media, some tips had come in about people seeing a child walking in certain areas, and I drove to some of those areas and began searching.
So let's talk a little bit in bigger picture here. The report was either missing or runaway child, is that right?
Yes,
Does that sort of guide you in those early stages of a case like that as to what you might be doing?
yes, and then the age of the child is also a major factor.
So tell the jury about that, those factors that you would be considering and how that would potentially drive the investigation in those early stages.
In this particular case, an 11-year-old child who is unaccounted for during winter months, so cold, and now overnight is at an extreme risk, and they're considered that within our agency. So additional resources are immediately put into place to start that search, which would be different than a 16-year-old who's run away 5 times in the past and has come back a day later. So different styles of approach to those.
And as it relates to the information you had, who was it that reported that Gannon was either missing?
His stepmother, Letecia.
On that same day of January 28, 2020, did you respond to Starbucks on Mesa Ridge Parkway?
Yes, I did.
Why did you go to Starbucks?
I learned that some of the detectives had come out to meet with Gannon's parents and speak to them. And I went over there to see if there was anything else I could do on efforts with doing searching or canvassing.
Did you actually see the parents of Gannon Stauch at that time?
Yes, I did. I sat at a table with our 2 detectives and them.
The person that you had been on the phone with earlier the morning of January 28th, and now the person that was at Starbucks, was that Letecia Stauch?
Yes, it was.
Do you see her here in the courtroom today?
Yes, I do.
Will you identify her to the court and to the jury by where she's sitting and what she's wearing?
Sitting over on our far right against the wall in a pink shirt.
I would ask that the record reflects he's identified the defendant.
The record will so reflect. Go ahead.
At some point during that contact with the father and the defendant, were you able to look at what was described to you as Gannon's phone?
Yes, I did.
Why did you do that?
Trying to determine if he had searched anywhere on like a Google Maps feature where there would be a history that might direct me on somewhere to go.
Would that be something that you would typically look for if you were looking for a missing child or a runaway child?
Sometimes you don't know where to look, so you look at all available information, and that is one thing that you would look for is did they search somewhere to go or enter a friend's address or something like that that maybe they hadn't walked to before to give them a route or something.
And not necessarily asking you for the address that you found in there, but did you learn of an address and then that ran to ground, meaning it was not really associated with the missing person here.
Correct.
Did the defendant herself at some point show you a picture of somebody that had been reported that looked like Gannon or that she thought was Gannon?
Yes, there had been some Facebook groups that were active in attempts to help locate Gannon, and she had been forwarded a photograph from one of those groups.
Did you do anything with that information?
We took that photograph and attempted to identify if it was in fact Gannon or not, and we were subsequently able to determine that it was not Gannon and that somebody else identified it as their child based on clothing and items they were carrying.
Did you become familiar with Gannon's neighborhood, so Lawson Ranch area, during this part of the investigation?
Yes, I did.
Did you canvass that neighborhood?
Yes, I did.
What does that mean to canvass a neighborhood?
There's many parts of it. The typical part that you would assume is police officers knocking on your door, asking questions, asking if you have surveillance cameras that are showing the roadway or sidewalks, driving through areas where kids might play, under bridges, construction sites, things like that.
Did you do those things?
Yes, I did.
Did that lead to any clues that you were readily able to find to locate Gannon?
No, I did not.
In the afternoon time, did you actually go to Gannon's home at 6627 Mandan Drive?
Yes, I did.
Why did you go there?
I wanted to clarify the timeline because I had not been part of the initial part of the investigation on when he would have left the house. So as I knocked on doors at different neighbors, I had a timeline to ask to look at their security camera feeds.
Did you have any contact with people at that residence?
Yes, I did.
Who was there?
There were several people that were unidentified to me. I think friends and family members, Letecia and Eugene.
So the defendant and Gannon's father?
Yes, and their daughter.
Did you try to verify a time from the defendant that would be of note for the investigation?
Yes,
What did she tell you?
it was between 3:15 and 4-ish approximately when he would have left the house.
Did she describe in that statement to you what she was doing when she reports that Gannon left the house?
Between her and her daughter during the conversation, it came up that a candle had been knocked over and there was a burn mark on the carpet, and she had been taking care of that when Gannon left.
Trying to fix that burn area?
Yes,
Did she describe in any detail anything about that candle or burn incident to you?
not specifically, no.
Okay. Did you ask the defendant what friend's house Gannon may have been heading towards?
Yes, I did.
What did she tell you?
She didn't know.
Did you then return to the house on a later date, January 31st, 2020?
Yes, I did.
Why did you go on that date?
I received a phone call from our investigations division, and they asked me to go to the house and told me that Letecia and some family members might be removing property from the house, and that they thought Letecia and another daughter of hers might be wearing smartwatches that could potentially contain some digital evidence that may be helpful in the investigation.
Did you in fact go to the house?
Yes, I did.
Did you see different vehicles than other times when you'd been in the neighborhood?
Yes, there was a van that was there, and then some other just personal cars.
Let's talk about that van. What do you remember about the van?
It was a not like a U-Haul moving van, but a van that you could, like a cargo van that you could pack stuff in, and they were unloading items from the house and packing it into the van.
Was it a white van?
Yes, it was.
Did you also see a Nissan vehicle there?
Yes, I did. I believe it was silver, if I recall correctly.
I'm sorry, say that last
I
part.
believe it was silver, if I recall correctly.
Okay. Do you remember, was it a Nissan Altima?
Sounds correct, yes.
How many people did you see there that were helping the defendant move things out of the house into the van as you described it?
There were probably 4 or so directly, but there were also other people present. So what each person's role was, I don't know exactly, but I know there were a couple at the van helping load stuff. I believe an aunt that was there as well as her mother.
So let's talk about the aunt. Was that person Brenda Awkward?
I believe so, yes.
And spelling on that, do you remember it off the top of your head? Does ACQUARD sound correct?
Sounds correct.
What vehicle was Brenda Awkward associated with?
Nissan, I believe.
Was she in fact the driver of that vehicle?
I believe so, yes.
Did you talk to her at all? And I'm not asking you for statements, but did you talk to her?
It would have been briefly, yes.
Okay. Other people that you identified that were associated with the defendant and potentially helping her load things into the van? Can you tell us those names?
I do not recall everybody's name, but I remember Harley was there, her mother was there, her aunt. I think there was another male that was there assisting as well,
Harley, who was that in relation to the defendant?
daughter.
Okay. And then mother, is that Deborah?
Yes,
And then you said a male, would that be Dakota Lowry?
I believe so, yes.
Do you know his relation to the defendant?
Not specifically, I thought he was a son, but I wasn't exactly sure.
Okay. Lieutenant, when I was asking you earlier if you remember the number of the person that you called on the morning of January 28th, you said you didn't remember, but if you looked at your report, you might be able to remember.
Yes, I documented that in my report.
I've got your report here. Would showing you that refresh your memory on that point?
Yes, it would.
Or ask for permission to approach the witness for refreshing his memory.
You may go ahead.
Yes,
Does that refresh your memory?
yes, it does.
What number was that?
843-655-7460.
I want to get into more detail about the statement that you got from the defendant when you went to the house after that phone call on January 28th. How long would you say that conversation lasted?
Just a couple of minutes.
Do you remember details of what she told you in that conversation?
Some of it, yes.
What do you remember specifically her telling you?
I had asked her if she knew where Gannon had gone, so I had a direction to go to and contact that house or houses in between. She said that she did not know. Her daughter made a comment about her mom being,
Mr. Allen?
I was reading the report and I couldn't tell who he was referring to there.
He said her daughter.
Yeah, so I'm not asking you for any statements right now. From daughter. I'm asking you for statements of the defendant.
she had made mention that she might have got a little excited during the fire during that.
Okay. Did she describe specifically what she did in relation to that fire?
I recall her saying she tried to put it out with a blanket, and originally the blanket caused it to get slightly bigger, and then she was able to put it out.
So basically, was she describing that she was trying to smother the fire?
Yes.
Did she describe, and when I say she again, I'm talking about the defendant, did she describe that Gannon had got something on his shirt?
Overruled. Go ahead and answer.
Yes.
What did she say about that?
It was pretty vague. It was just he had something on the front of his shirt that had gotten on there during the fire incident.
Okay, may I have just a moment here?
You may.
Was there a younger daughter there as well?
Yes.
Did you ever get that daughter's name?
I did not.
Would you say rough age?
Approximately 8.
Did she at some point point to you direction of which direction Gannon may have walked to?
Yes, she did.
And which direction was she generally pointing?
She pointed east from the house, referring to a friend of Gannon's that lived a few houses down.
Okay. Now I want to get into some other information as it relates to your experience and then what you learned in this case. Have you responded out to other calls where a kid in this rough age range is missing or had run away?
Yes, I have.
How many types of those calls have you gone out to, would you say?
It'd be hard to put a number on it, but over my career, a lot, probably in excess of 30 runaway or missing persons style calls.
When you go out to those types of calls, have you had opportunities to observe people's emotional reactions to that sort of an event?
Yes, I have.
Is it fair to say that the emotional reactions can vary?
Yes, it is.
Based on your contact with this defendant in this case, did her reactions and the way that she was interacting with you, was it consistent with other times that you've gone out on these types of calls or different?
Overruled. I don't think Mr. Allen is asking for an expert opinion. I think he's asking for an opinion based on his prior encounters with other individuals. So it goes to weight, not admissibility. Overruled. You can go ahead and answer.
In similar situations where a child as young as Gannon, 11 years old, is emotional reaction, especially when it has now been overnight and a second day. The emotions are usually more visible and present. It's not always the case, but most of the time it is when a parent's child has gone missing and they have no idea where they are now for a period of 2 days.
During your law enforcement career, have you dealt with people that, excuse me, that are dealing with severe mental health disorders or diseases?
Yes, I have.
Can you approximate, or is it too many to even put a number on?
It would be difficult to put a number on that.
Was the defendant in your contact with her on January 28th and on January 31st, did she appear to be suffering from any severe mental health disorder or disease?
Overruled. You
You
can
can
go ahead
answer.
and answer.
It did not appear to me, no.
Did she, when you were talking with her, asking her questions, would her answers logically follow the questions?
Yes,
Did she appear to understand, I guess, what you were asking about?
yes,
Was she able to give you specific answers to those questions?
yes, she was.
Thank you. That's all I have, Your Honor.
Sorry. All right. Cross-examination.
In your experience, how long have you been in law enforcement?
26 years.
In your 26 years, how many people have you dealt with that suffer from dissociative identity disorder?
I wouldn't be able to tell you. I don't know exactly what disorder people may have be suffering from.
Do you know if you've ever dealt with anybody who suffered from dissociative identity disorder?
I would believe I've probably come in contact with them. Yes.
How many?
I don't know.
No further questions.
Redirect.
Did the defendant, based on what you just testified to, did she appear to be suffering from dissociative identity disorder?
No.
Thank you.
Do any of the jurors have any questions for Lieutenant Hess? No? All right. Thank you, sir. You may step down. Prosecution, call your next witness, please. Next witness is,
Yes, Your Honor, Leslie Hicks.
thank you. Ms. Hicks, if you would step forward and raise your right hand, please, ma'am. Start out there first. Raise your right hand. You swear affirm the testimony about to give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Go ahead and have a seat in the witness stand. Please watch your step as you step into the stand.
Good morning, Ms. Hicks.
Good morning.
For the purposes of the record, would you state your name?
Leslie Hicks.
And how are you employed?
I'm employed at Academy School District 20 as an assistant principal.
And about how long have you been employed at that school?
At the school, I'm currently at Timberview Middle School, but I was at Mountain Ridge Middle School for almost 25 years. I was there from 1997, with the exception of 2 years.
And in January of 2020, what school were you at?
I was at Mountain Ridge Middle School.
And as an assistant principal?
Correct.
How long have you generally been in that type of role?
At that time, I had been in that role for 3 years.
And prior to that, what sort of role had you had in education in that kind of context?
I was a teacher in several subject areas at 3 different grade levels. I also served as an intervention coordinator at Mountain Ridge prior to the assistant principal role. And I was at Rampart High School for 2 years as an interventionist, but for about 17 years, I was a teacher.
Okay. And in terms of the course of your role as an assistant principal over the years, how many interviews have you been a part of?
Hundreds. I mean, I've interviewed probably hundreds of people, both in the role as a teacher and as an assistant principal and interventionist, probably over the span of that 20 plus years, definitely hundreds of interviews.
And why is that interview process so important for the nature of the work?
Okay, because we're trying to find the best person to educate our children. And it's very important that we put the best people in front of our kids.
Okay. As a part of the open applications for the school that you were at in January 2020, was there an applicant by the name of Letecia Stauch?
Yes, it was.
And for what position did Letecia Stauch apply for?
She applied for a resource teacher, which is a teacher for students that have IEPs or a special education.
And as part of that interview process, did you meet in person with someone by the name of Letecia Stauch?
Yes,
And do you see that same person here today in court?
yes, I do.
Can you identify them where they are seated in the courtroom?
Yes, over here.
Okay, and that is your right side in
That is my right side in the purple shirt.
the purple shirt. Your Honor, may the record reflect that Ms. Hicks has identified the defendant?
The record will so reflect. Go ahead.
Okay. Now, Ms. Hicks, you explained that it's a resource teacher
Mhm.
position. What are the roles and responsibilities of that position?
Okay, the role of the teacher in that position is to serve as a case manager for our students with learning disabilities. And that person would teach some classes to help meet the needs of those kids. And in our school, that person also worked as a co-teacher in classes with the general ed teacher and would work in partnership with that person.
And for that particular position, as it relates to working with this particular set of children, would that person also be responsible for making sure that students follow rules?
Yeah, I think every teacher at school is responsible for classroom management, and that's part of the role of a teacher, is making sure that kids are performing the way they need to perform, both behaviorally and academically.
And as part of the onboarding process for employees, are they also given particular guidance about how to report violations from students, that sort of thing?
Yeah, within the school, yes, and that would be something as far as, how we manage that in our own buildings.
Okay. And as part of the interviewing process, What forms of communication did you have with the defendant?
We interviewed in person. She came into the school, and we have a set of questions. We had an interview team. There were 3 of us on the interview team, and we asked her a series of questions that had to do with the topics that you were speaking of, both, how do you manage students academically and provide for them, as well as classroom management and behavior.
So in addition to meeting with someone in person for that interview panel, are communications also done through other forms? What other means?
After the interview or during the
After or
interview?
before, at any point with an applicant?
Before, it would be, actually probably the secretary probably contacted her to set up a time for an interview. And then after the interview, if the candidate is chosen, then I would reach out and I would be checking references and then reaching out ultimately to decide whether we want to move forward with a hire or not.
Your Honor, permission to approach the witness with what has been marked as People's Exhibit 207 previously shown to the defense.
You may go ahead.
Ms. Hicks, I'm going to ask you to look at People's Exhibit 207. Take a moment to familiarize yourself with that first page. And I'll ask you to look through the messages that follow and familiarize yourself with those.
I did leave my glasses in my purse. Could I get those? I
Yes.
apologize.
If that would help you.
Yes, it would help.
Kind of permission to approach.
You may.
I apologize.
It's all good.
Thank you. Okay.
And Ms. Hicks, I'll actually stop you there on that first, that first page of messages.
Mhm.
Do you recognize the telephone numbers that appear on that page?
Yes, I do.
Which one is your telephone number? Do you
My
recognize-
number is 719-400-8405.
Okay.
Ms. Hicks?
Yes.
This is sort of an unfamiliar experience for a lot of people.
Yes.
The lady to your right is taking down everything we say as we say it. So it's important to remember, let the attorney finish the question all the way before you give an answer, and she'll let you finish your answer. It's common in ordinary conversations that we talk over each other, but it makes the court reporter's job really, really hard if you do that in the courtroom.
Gotcha.
Okay?
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
So you recognize a telephone number that's associated that you use, is that correct?
Correct.
All right. And not to read from it, but do you recognize the other telephone number?
Yes.
Okay. And how generally do you recognize that telephone number?
It's been a while since I've looked at this, but I remember the area code, and the number does look familiar to me.
Okay. And what number did you use? Who did you use that number to communicate with?
Ms. Stauch.
Okay. I'll ask you to look through the remainder of the messages to familiarize yourself with them.
Okay.
And you'll have an opportunity to read them.
Okay.
But I just generally, as you flip through the pages, if you can make sure that they represent a text message exchange that you're familiar with.
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay.
And are they?
Yes.
And are they a fair and accurate depiction of the message exchange you had between yourself and the phone number that you know to be associated with Letecia Stauch?
Yes.
Right, Your Honor, at this time, we would move for the admission of People's Exhibit 207.
Defense, exhibit 207 will be admitted. Go ahead.
Okay. And Your Honor, permission to publish.
You may.
Ms. Hicks, messages are going to be displayed behind you.
Okay.
If it's easy for you to stand next to that, you can do that. We may still have a pointer there. You're probably familiar with using a pointer as a teacher. So if you want to use that. Okay, great.
No,
Your
it's
Honor, if you would turn on the,
It is on.
oh,
There we go.
okay, great. Now, Ms. Hicks, you've explained that your telephone number. We see this first message displayed here on the screen. Who's sending that message?
I am.
Okay, and what does it say? Can you read it for us?
Hi, Tisha. This is Leslie Hicks at Mountain Ridge Middle School. I left you a phone message yesterday, and I'm wondering if you received it. Would it be possible for you to call me today at this number or to email me? I'd like to talk to you about the resource teacher position. Thank you.
All right. And just to make sure that your voice is projecting to all of our jurors, is it possible for you to stand on the other side of the screen? All right. And what date was that message sent by you?
January 16th, 2020.
Okay, and we'll move on to the next message. And again, the telephone number that you see in this message, you're familiar with that number? Okay. And so we see a maybe Nicole. Does that mean anything to you? Okay. What is the response that you receive after you sent your first message?
I have iMessages. I will email you.
Okay. And what date was that sent?
1/16/2020.
Okay, great. And we'll move onwards. What's your response?
Great, thank you.
Okay. The following day, you send another response. What did you send on January 17th?
Hi, Tisha. This is Leslie Hicks at Mountain Ridge again. I sent you an email yesterday. Is it possible for you to get back to me today? Thank you.
Okay. And did you get a response?
I emailed you back.
Okay. And was that sent to you the same day?
Correct.
And so, Ms. Hicks, as part of this process, at this point, January 17th-ish, where is the defendant in the application or hiring process at this point?
At this point, she has completed her interview and I'm in the process of checking references.
Okay. And if you want, you can take a seat now. We'll come back to more of the messages. So as part of that application process, you referenced obtaining references. Is that right?
Correct.
Was the defendant able to provide you with some references?
Yes, on her application, she had references, and I was having trouble getting a hold of some of the references. And so through the course of our dialogue, I asked her for additional ones.
Okay. Do you remember a particular reference by the name of Connie Huddle?
Yes.
Do you remember the first telephone number that was provided to you for Connie Huddle?
I remember that it was an area code from South Carolina.
Okay.
I believe it was, I know it started with a six.
And that's
Four-
fine.
Okay.
Fair to say it's been a while since you've seen that.
Yes,
number.
it has.
Okay. And do you recall giving a statement to Detective Marissa Williams on January 31st of 2020?
Yes,
Do you recall giving those specific telephone number to the detective that day?
I do.
And would seeing your statement refresh your recollection as to that specific telephone number?
Yes, it would.
Your Honor, permission to approach?
You may, go ahead.
All right, Ms. Hicks, as far as the first telephone number that was provided to you by the defendant here, does that refresh your recollection?
Yes,
Okay. What was the first telephone number the defendant provided to you for a contact named Connie Huddle?
it was 843-504-6724.
And what happened when you tried to contact that telephone number?
I have a caller ID on my telephone and the name Eugene Stauch came up.
That name?
Other than the last name, I was not familiar with the name at the time. No.
Okay. And I'll take a step back. The first telephone number that you called,
Mhm.
was there more than one number that you were provided for Connie Huddle?
I don't remember.
Okay. And again, Your Honor, permission to approach?
You may.
Ms. Hicks, do you recall talking to Detective Williams and providing her with a very specific first telephone number?
Yes,
And would reviewing that statement refresh your recollection as to the first telephone number?
yes. Okay.
Okay. Does that refresh your recollection?
Yes,
What was the first telephone number that you called?
843-957-3486.
What happened when you called that first telephone number? Were you able to get through?
No,
What did you ask for after you didn't get through with that telephone number?
I asked if there was a different number.
Okay, and were you provided a different number by the defendant?
Yes,
And from memory, are you able to recall what that second number was?
843-604 6724.
All right. And I'll ask you again would seeing a statement of your report refresh your recollection as to that specific telephone number?
Yes,
Okay. And can you review your statement for that second specific telephone number?
yes. 843-504-6724.
Okay, thank you. A lot of different numbers. You called various numbers as it relates to references.
Yes, I did.
And so now I'll come back to the question that I had is, when you were actually able to complete a call, can you tell the jury what you heard on that call?
Yes, a female answered and didn't identify who it was, but I heard children in the background.
And were you did you ask, what did you do when you
Yes,
heard?
I asked if it was Connie. And if I recall, the person said no. And,
Hold on.
okay,
Wait a minute.
sorry.
That's okay.
Yep.
Ms. Gratiano?
Yes, Your Honor. I'm not asking what the other person said, Your Honor. And
Oh, okay.
but further, it's also not offered for the truth and matter asserted.
Okay. Well, then where are you going?
I'm just going to ask,
You might want to approach.
Your Honor, permission to approach?
Okay.
So far, basically, Leslie has said that the phone number she was given as references for the special education job that Letecia had applied for were all incorrect numbers, except for this last one, and that was supposed to be a lady named Connie. But when she called Connie, the person
Objection
said that's
sustained.
not her name.
Ms. Hicks, how long was the duration of that call?
Just a few seconds.
Okay. After that interaction, did you have any sort of concerns about moving forward with the application process as it related to the defendant?
No,
Okay. And why is that? At that point, where were you at in the interview process?
well, the interview had been completed. And as I said, we were checking for references. Sometimes people give incorrect numbers. And so I asked for additional numbers for references.
In terms of educational background, is that also part of the interview process?
Yes,
Okay. And did the defendant provide you with some sort of information regarding an educational background?
I had access to her resume, yes.
Okay. In terms of the educational background, was there a particular degree that the defendant claimed that she had?
I did say she had a doctorate.
From where?
From Liberty University.
And were you able, as part of the interview process, able to vet that?
That's not my role. That's not my role.
Okay. In terms of during the application and interview process, did the defendant ask to be referred to by any other names?
No,
Okay. What about any other educational references, either through speaking with her or through emails, text messages, any other way that she wanted to be referred to as?
she did sign her emails, Dr. Stauch.
Okay. Ultimately, what was the decision with regard to hiring the defendant?
We did eventually offer her a position at
Okay.
the school.
And is that a decision that you unilaterally make?
During the interview process, there are three of us that decided that we would like to move forward. And then I do the reference checks, and then I bring that information to my principal, and we decided to move forward.
Okay.
Yes.
And so based on that decision, when would have been the first time that she made contact with either you or the school at that point?
Well, at that point, it's a recommendation for hire goes to our district human resources department, and the rest of the process goes through them. And then once they are have gone through their process, she's recommended to come over to the school.
Okay. And for that, was she recommended to come to the school?
Yes.
And do you recall a rough approximation of when that would have happened?
Yes, the 22nd of January.
Of 2020?
Yes.
If we can project people's 207 again, Your Honor. Okay. Thank you, Ms. Hicks. As we scroll onwards past January 17th, we will move to, we can continue on. And we'll move to, looks like January 20th. There's a message that is sent by the defendant's telephone number. What is that message?
What time do I be there tomorrow?
Okay, and what date is that sent?
That is 1/21.
Okay. And the subsequent message after that, what else does that message, that phone number say to you?
And do I need to bring anything specific? I just hung up with the district and they said to be there tomorrow.
Great. And what was your response?
Hi, Tisha. We're so excited to have you here. The workday begins at 7:30. You don't need to bring anything in particular. We will have a sub there tomorrow that has been filling in. You'll have an opportunity to shadow him and meet the kids, as well as get set up with the things you will need. Sherry Fuller, our SPED department leader, will meet you tomorrow as well. See you soon.
And what was the next exchange that the defendant's telephone number sent to you?
Good evening.
And what date was that sent?
And that date is on the 22nd.
Okay, and can you read, great. Can you read the rest of the message?
I wanted to ask your guidance about what to do about tomorrow. I had scheduled that interview at the district office before getting hired. I understand they probably have someone someone in mind, but I don't want to burn any bridges and would like to at least let them know my interest in eventually moving up later, or even if it's a year or so. I know we have to all start somewhere. What do you think is the best approach to take? Thank you.
Great. And what was your response to that message?
Hi, Tisha. It is your choice if you want to choose to interview tomorrow. Please remember that you will need a substitute and sub-plans to cover the classes you will miss. Please let us know if you need assistance with that. Thank you.
Great. And the next message that you received from the defendant's telephone number?
Well, they told me to do the fingerprints too, so I was just trying to do the right thing.
And the message after that?
Okay, I will just try to do the right thing by everyone. I didn't want to stand anyone up and wanted to be loyal to our school too.
Okay. And the next message?
It's 8 a.m. I mentioned it before in our emails, but wanted to make sure to follow the necessary steps. They did say I could do the fingerprints while I'm there, so I could get some link to do the paperwork. I haven't done any of that.
Ms. Hicks, how would you generally describe this type of exchange in these messages?
Overruled.
I would say that they be typical of somebody who might be, who is just a new employee.
Okay. Conscientious, would that? Okay.
Conscientious and wanting to do the, making sure that she's putting herself in her best job.
All right. At some point, was there arrangements made for her to shadow somebody at the school and be present?
Yes.
Okay. And do you recall the last time you saw the defendant in person?
The last time I saw her in person was that Friday morning of the 25th.
And how would you generally describe her demeanor?
She was at work and working and meeting the kids. She was running a class.
And it's a little tricky, but would Friday the 24th sound more accurate?
Oh, yes.
Okay. So Friday, January 24th, her demeanor was appropriate?
Yes.
Okay. Did she ask to be referred to by any other names?
No.
Did she appear to you, based on your work in being around teachers and hiring, did she appear to be going through any sort of mental health crisis?
No.
Okay. Subsequent to seeing her on Friday, January 24th, what was the next contact that you had with her, either in person or through other form?
I received a text message from her on Monday, 27th.
All right. And if we could move to Monday morning, January 27th, through the messages. They should appear on page 5. What time was the message from the defendant's phone sent to your phone on January 27th of 2020?
3 a.m.
Okay. Did you read it at 3 a.m.?
No.
What were you doing? Okay. What did the message say?
I'm sorry for the time of night message, but my stepfather passed away. Someone hit him with a car while he was walking. I can update you at a later time.
All right. Subsequent message your phone received. What was that message?
Uh, The message,
Was it the same? Was it different?
the same message,
Okay. What time was that message?
4:37 a.m.
Okay, so it's exactly the same as the message that was sent at 3 a.m. from the defendant's phone? At some point that morning, did you wake up?
Yes,
Okay. Like a busy assistant principal, were you then able to look at all your messages?
yes.
Okay. When you had an opportunity to read this message, what was your response?
I responded saying, "Oh my goodness, Letecia, I'm so sorry."
Okay. And we'll move onwards. What else did you say?
And then shall we try to find a sub for you today?
Okay, and about what time is this based on the timestamps we see here?
5:50 a.m.
Okay. Subsequent response by the defendant's telephone number. We'll move up. What was that response?
Two question marks. It's apparent all my family lives in the East Coast. I'm trying to find a way to get there.
And what time was that sent?
I was sent at 7:21.
Okay. What was your response to that message?
Okay, I'm just trying to understand your plans so that we can find coverage. Am I understanding that you will not be in today?
And what time was that sent?
7:32.
And the response from the defendant's phone?
Yes, it's my parent. I can't believe I can't believe that would not be an assumption in a time like this.
And your response to that?
I'm so sorry for your loss and we will support you, but I cannot make assumptions. I do need some direction from you. We will get a sub today. Please let us know what else you need moving forward.
Okay. Ms. Hicks, you can take a seat now. Thank you. In the text message exchange that occurred on January 27th that morning, how would you describe the tone of that exchange?
Angry.
Okay. In terms of candidates and now a hired candidate contacting you, was your phone number provided for this type of emergency?
Could you repeat the question?
When there is an emergency, as far as whether or not somebody can be at work, what's the procedure? What is that person supposed to do?
Typically, they might contact their supervisor and let them know what's happening. We do have a system to get a substitute, but she wouldn't have gone through that training as yet.
So instead of going through that process because she hadn't received that training, what other avenue would she have had to inform you of an emergency?
To contact me as her supervisor through either phone or email.
Okay. Had you had any other contact with the defendant after that last exchange we saw in
No.
People's 207?
No.
Your Honor, we'll pass the witness.
Cross-examination? No. Do any of the jurors have any questions for Ms. Hicks? No. All right. Thank you, ma'am. You may
Thank
step
you.
down. Council approach, please. Prosecution, call your next witness, please. Right, sir, if you would step forward and raise your right hand, please. Do you swear or affirm the testimony about to give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Go ahead and have a seat in the witness stand. Please watch your step as you step into the witness stand. Mr. Allen?
Thank you, Your Honor. And just for the record, Your Honor, we're calling Kevin Clark one of probably several times in this case. Mr. Clark, could you please introduce yourself to the jury and spell your name for the record?
Good morning. My name is Kevin Clark, Kevinclark.
And Mr. Clark, where do you work?
I'm the Director of Crime Strategies and Intelligence for the 4th Judicial District Attorney's Office.
What kind of education and training do you have that allows you to do the work that you do?
I've got an Associate's of Applied Science degree in Communication Applications Technology, a bachelor's degree in Homeland Security, a master's degree in Project Management, and then I've earned undergraduate certificates, since I already have the bachelor's degree, in digital forensics, cybercrime, and database management. I've also received training by law enforcement agencies in cell phone tower and mapping data, fundamentals of crime intelligence analysis training, level 1 and level 2 of a program called GeoTime for cell phone data and mapping program, as well as the FBI's cellular analysis survey team, level 1 and level 2 training.
And then as it relates to the investigation for Gannon Stauch, missing Gannon Stauch, how did you become involved in that investigation?
At the time, I was a senior criminal intelligence analyst for the Colorado Springs Police Department, assigned to their Metro Vice Narcotics and Intelligence Division. And in that capacity, I work with all the law enforcement agencies in the local area. We were aware of a missing child, and then I was asked on Saturday, February 1st, by my commander, if I'd be willing to go TDY to assist as lead analyst in this investigation for the next 30 to 60 days.
Not everybody necessarily knows what TDY means.
Temporary duty. So instead of working at my normal office with the Colorado Springs Police Department, I worked primarily out of the command post.
And then as a result of your involvement in this investigation, do you know whether multiple search warrants were obtained for phone numbers?
They were.
What would you typically get when you issue a search warrant to a cell phone provider?
To a cell phone provider, so AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile, and then Sprint at the time, you would get something back called call detail records. The call detail records is just a business record full of dates and times with phone numbers that communicate with each other. So the outgoing call from the target phone number or the incoming call to the target phone number, what that phone number is, how long the duration of the call was, if the call was connected. Text messages, same thing. At this date, on this time, phone number 1 sent a text message, phone number 2, or on the receiving end of that. Data sessions, and usually some sort of subscriber information, who pays the bill for that phone.
So do you submit a phone number to the cell phone provider to get that information?
You do.
Okay. So we just heard Ms. Hicks testifying about the defendant giving a reference for a person called Connie Huddle and listed the phone number 843-504-6724. Did you hear that testimony?
I did.
Based on your knowledge of that particular phone number, who is that phone number associated to?
Gannon Stauch.
Indicating that the defendant created that reference and used Gannon Stauch's phone number for that person.
That's correct.
Okay. Okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Cross-examination.
No questions, Your Honor.
All right, all right. Thank you, sir. You may step down.
Thank you.
Oh, this witness will be available throughout the trial, and my understanding is going to be testifying at a later time.
At least 2 more times, Judge.
Go ahead and submit your question now. I'll hold on to it. It may be that we can ask it. Do any of the jurors have any questions? Let me ask that. Oh, no. All right. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Clark. You can go ahead and step down. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take our lunch recess a little bit early. If I can have all of you back in the jury room at say 1:15, we'll be able to start on time at that point. Again, do not discuss the case among yourselves. Don't discuss the case with anyone else. Don't do any research about any aspect of this case. And we'll see you back at 1:15. All rise for the jury, please. Thank you. May all be seated. Record should reflect the jury has left the courtroom. So when we come back, that's when we're going to have the 30-minute video or so.
Yes, Judge. So it's People's Exhibit number 211. Defense has indicated that they'll stipulate to admission and publishing of this. It's a audio recording.
Okay. And then what's the plan for the rest of the afternoon?
Or we just have more witnesses, obviously, Judge. Let's see. At some point today, we'll have Dr. Leon Kelly will come in to testify, Detective Marissa Williams. Depending on how far we get, Janine Sanchez and Nicole Mobley as well, and then a Deputy Chris Ganstein.
But we will not be getting to the person who did the autopsy today.
No, autopsy, doctor for autopsy is being flown in on Sunday, so she'll be first thing on Monday morning.
That's
Yeah,
what I was-
arranging all these flights from Florida has been challenging.
I get it. Okay. All right. Anything from the defense? Okay, great. We'll see you.
All right.
Okay, so they just went to lunch for about an hour and a half. Real quick, let me summarize what happened in the second part this morning, which was after the recess. Jason Hess, who was a lieutenant he is a lieutenant with El Paso County, Colorado Sheriff's Office, was a patrol sergeant at the time and was on duty at the time and was missing the following day. And he made a phone call to Letecia to find out if Gannon had returned home or if she had any further information on where he might be. He asked if the deputies had searched their home, and Letecia said yes, they had. He is also the officer that provided the photo to the information officer to get Gannon's photo out to the public. He said that the report was for a missing or runaway child. And because Gannon was only 11 years old and the weather was super cold in January in Colorado, that they utilized more resources than usual to try and find him. He met with Letecia and detectives at a Starbucks a couple days in, where he was able to look at Gannon's phone's search history for any clues of where Gannon may have gone. At one point, Letecia provided a photograph from a Facebook group I guess they were saying that this could be Gannon. And so Letecia got that Facebook group photo and showed that to detectives. T told them that Gannon left between 3:15 and 4 o'clock, and that during that time frame, she was cleaning the candle burn area. And then he was also called back to the home when Letecia started moving things out of her house into that white rental van. He said the Nissan Altima was also there at the time, which I believe is Leticia's sister's car. And he was asked if his, knowledge on mental disorders, and he was quite knowledgeable. And he said, in his opinion, Letecia did not appear to be suffering from did. And then the next witness was Leslie Hicks. And at the time, Leslie was the assistant principal at Mountain Ridge Middle School. And she met Letecia when Letecia applied for a job with them for a position as a resource officer in special education. God, that's frightening. Letecia working with any children's frightening, but special education teachers especially so. Leslie testified that, during the hiring process, she was given several numbers for references. And when she called those numbers, none of them were good phone numbers. She did get a hold of one of the references that Letecia had put down, and this lady's name was allegedly Connie. But when Leslie called Connie for the reference, the lady that answered said she didn't know anybody by that name. So despite all this, the Mountain Ridge Middle School District decided they were still going to hire Letecia. But she said she did ask for additional reference phone numbers. Letecia's resume said that she had a doctorate degree, and in her emails with the school, she signed her emails Dr. Stauch. They did offer her a position at the school, and she was supposed to begin her first day on January 22nd, 2020. On January 21st, everything was still fine. Letecia had sent Leslie a text asking about what time does she need to be at work and things like that. Now, remember, Gannon went missing on January 27th. This right now is January 22nd. She said that then on January 27th at 2 a.m., Letecia texted her that her father had been hit by a car. At 4:37 a.m., Letecia sent that same exact text to Leslie again. And at 7:32 a.m. that morning, Leslie asked if she was correct in thinking, that Letecia wouldn't be at work that day. And apparently, Leslie felt that Letecia got rather angry and responded that it should be obvious that she won't. This is her family member. She also mentioned something about having to go back to the East Coast because that's where all her family is. And then the next witness was Kevin Clark. He is right now Director of Crime Strategies and Intelligence for the DA's office. But at the time Gannon went missing, he was the Senior Criminal Intelligence Analyst for the Colorado Springs Police Department. And so he testified that Connie lady that Letecia had given as a reference, and then Leslie called her, and the lady answered she didn't know anybody by that name. Well, that phone number that was given for Connie, that was actually Gannon's phone number. Unreal. All right, so they are on break for about an hour and 15 minutes. I'm not going to stay on here during their entire break, but there was a press conference this morning on a pretty interesting case, and I'd like to let you guys know about that real quick.
Appreciate everybody being here. And we're here for two reasons. Because of a very extremely tragic incident that has occurred, but on the other side of the coin, a conclusion to that tragedy. As all of you are well aware, last Thursday, March 30th, we received a call near Forest Lakes Park, where our first victim, Layla Silvernail, was located suffering from a gunshot wound. She would later succumb to her injuries. The following morning, we responded to a location about a half a mile away and located a second victim deceased on the side of the road from an apparent gunshot wound. Then on Saturday, April 1st, my deputies located Layla's car abandoned and partially submerged in a pond about 9 miles from the location where she was found. My investigators located the third victim inside of the car. And I'll go ahead and tell you, because you've been asking me for specific details. She was located in the trunk. Now, I want to clear up before we get into those details. Based on the interviews, digital evidence from her phone, she was there of her own free will. Now, I'm going to start off by thanking all of the entities. If there's ever a true example of law enforcement, communities coming together, and a almost perfect collaboration to come to a conclusion in a week on a triple homicide, is truly amazing. Those entities include the FBI, FDLE, U.S. Marshal's Office, and in my opinion, probably the best state attorney in the state of Florida for the 5th Judicial Circuit, Bill Gladson's assistant state attorneys. OPD, my deputies, detectives, forensic professionals, and our citizens, who are truly amazing. Now, this one's going to come a shock to you. That includes you, the media. You helped us of getting information. My emotions right now are all over the place because I am so proud of my guys and girls. I didn't do a damn thing, but they stepped up to the plate. And yes, you put information out there, and I'll admit this, you wore my ass out of interviews, you hounded me, but don't ever think I didn't use you as well to get the information I needed. Now, the investigators were able to determine that this group of juveniles were involved in committing burglaries and robberies, which they were referred to as a lick. Now, although we had out there that was gang related, we have nothing specific to say that it was any rivalry or anything to such that cause. But however, each and every one of them, in some shape or form, is associated with a gang. Basically, simple terms, there is no honor among thieves. And at some point, these 3 individuals turned on our 3 victims and murdered them. 2 of them right there. They fled the scenes, but left a lot of evidence in their wake. Through the cooperation of the agencies that I previously mentioned and my office, we were able to begin compiling all of the evidence and finding these killers. Now, we were shocked and saddened by the violence, as all of my citizens, because we are shocked not only are the victims juveniles, but the murderers are juveniles as well.
Welcome to KTVB Inside the Courtroom, the Vallow trial. Today marked day one of the jury selection. So this really is the first official day of the start of this trial that we know lots of people are going to be watching.
Third victim inside of the car. And I'll go ahead and tell you because you've been asking me for specific details. She was located in the trunk. Now, I want to clear up before we get into those details, based on interviews, digital evidence from her phone, she was there of her own free will. Now, I'm going to start off by thanking all of the entities. If there's ever a true example of law enforcement, communities coming together and a almost perfect collaboration to come to a conclusion in a week on a triple homicide is truly amazing. Those entities include the FBI, FDLE, U.S. Marshal's Office, and in my opinion, probably the best state attorney in the state of Florida for the 5th Judicial Circuit, Bill Gladson's assistant state attorneys. OPD, my deputies, detectives, forensic professionals, and our citizens who are truly amazing. Now, this one's going to come a shock to you. That includes you, the media. You helped us of getting information. My emotions right now are all over the place because I am so proud of my guys and girls. I didn't do a damn thing, but they stepped up to the plate. And yes, you put information out there, and I'll admit this, you wore my ass out of interviews, you hounded me, but don't ever think I didn't use you as well to get the information I needed. Now, the investigators were able to determine that this group of juveniles were involved in committing burglaries and robberies, which they were referred to as a lick. Now, although we had out there that was gang related, we have nothing specific to say that it was any rivalry or anything to such that cause. But however, each and every one of them, in some shape or form, is associated with a gang. Basically, simple terms, there is no honor among thieves. And at some point, these three individuals turned on our three victims and murdered them. Two of them right there. They fled the scenes, but left a lot of evidence in their wake. Through the cooperation of the agencies that I previously mentioned and my office, we were able to begin compiling all of the evidence and finding these killers. Now, we were shocked. And saddened by the violence, as all of my citizens. Because we are shocked, not only are the victims juveniles, but the murderers are juveniles as well. In a week, on a triple homicide, is truly amazing. Those entities include state attorneys, OPD, my deputies, detectives, forensic professionals, and our citizens, who are truly amazing. Now, this one's going to come a shock to you. That includes you, the media. You helped us of getting information. My emotions right now are all over the place because I am so proud of my guys and girls. I didn't do a damn thing, but they stepped up to the plate. And yes, you put information out there, and I'll admit this, you wore my ass out of interviews, you hounded me, but don't ever think I didn't use you as well to get the information I needed. Now, the investigators were able to determine that this group of juveniles were involved in committing burglaries and robberies, which they were referred to as a lick. Now, although we had out there that was gang related, we have nothing specific to say that it was any rivalry or anything to such that cause. But however, each and every one of them, in some shape or form, is associated with a gang. Basically, simple terms, there is no honor among thieves. And at some point, these three individuals turned on our three victims and murdered them. Two of them right there. They fled the scenes, but left a lot of evidence in their wake. Through the cooperation of the agencies that I previously mentioned and my office, we were able to begin compiling all of the evidence and finding these killers. Now, we were shocked and saddened by the violence, as all of my citizens, because we are shocked not only are the victims juveniles, but the murderers are juveniles as well.
Okay, so I don't know why it keeps skipping over to that other thing right in the middle of it, and I haven't pressed anything. So I will find another one. But real quick, if you're not familiar with this case, this happened in Florida. And let's play this.
Were shot and killed, assuring the community at large is not in danger.
There is nothing to indicate that it is a serial killer whatsoever.
According to deputies, 16-year-old Layla Silvernail was found lying on the side of the road near Forest Lakes Park with a gunshot wound Thursday night. She was rushed to the hospital in critical condition and died days later. Less than a mile away, the following morning, a 17-year-old boy was also found shot and killed. And then Saturday, Layla's car was discovered in a body of water about 10 miles away. Where investigators found the body of another 16-year-old girl who had been shot inside.
All of our victims are known or were known to know.
Okay, so that video is having trouble too. So what happened? Marion County, Florida, investigators in Central Florida are asking the public for any information related to the deaths of the 3 teenage friends being investigated as homicides after they were discovered with gunshot wounds in separate locations. 15 detectives are working the case. It says no arrests have been made and investigators are not ruling out anything. At this point, 2 arrests have been made. The first victim was a 16-year-old female. She was found shot on the side of the road in the Forest Lakes Park area Thursday night and later died in a hospital from her critical injuries. Then the next morning, shortly before 8 a.m., deputies responded to a second report of a person on the side of a road, and there they found a 17-year-old male who had been fatally shot. And then the third victim's body was discovered Saturday inside a vehicle that had been partially submerged in a body of water. That victim's name is being withheld at the family's request. Authorities are not aware of any additional victims at this time, according to the sheriff. When asked if the victims were all shot by the same weapon, the sheriff told reporters they are still waiting on forensics. The sheriff also urged people to avoid speculation and sharing rumors on social media, and that there's nothing to indicate that the killings were carried out by a serial killer, despite some rumors. One of the things I want each of you to think of and try to remember when you start to type is that there are family members out there reading it. And anyone with information relevant to the case is encouraged to contact the sheriff's office or submit a tip to Crime Stoppers of Marion County. So real quick, let me try to find that press conference on another channel since that one kept messing up. Okay, let's see if this works. There we go. So we'll just start it over from the beginning so that this live has the entire press conference on it.
First of all, I appreciate everybody being here. Now, we're here for two reasons. Because of a very extremely tragic incident that has occurred. But on the other side of the coin, a conclusion to that tragedy. As all of you are well aware, last Thursday, March 30th, we received a call near Forest Lakes Park, where our first victim, Layla Silvernail, was located suffering from a gunshot wound. She would later succumb to her injuries. The following morning, we responded to a location about a half a mile away and located a second victim deceased on the side of the road from an apparent gunshot wound. Then on Saturday, April 1st, my deputies located Layla's car abandoned and partially submerged in a pond about 9 miles from the location where she was found. My investigators located the third victim inside of the car. And I'll go ahead and tell you because you've been asking me for specific details. She was located in the trunk. Now, I want to clear up before we get into those details. Based on the interviews, digital evidence from her phone, she was there of her own free will. Now, I'm going to start off by thanking all of the entities. If there's ever a true example of law enforcement, communities coming together and a almost perfect collaboration to come to a conclusion in a week on a triple homicide is truly amazing. Those entities include the FBI, FDLE, U.S. Marshal's Office, and in my opinion, probably the best state attorney in the state of Florida for the 5th Judicial Circuit, Bill Gladson's assistant state attorneys. OPD, my deputies, detectives, forensic professionals, and our citizens who are truly amazing. Now, this one's going to come a shock to you. That includes you, the media. You helped us of getting information. My emotions right now are all over the place because I am so proud of my guys and girls. I didn't do a damn thing, but they stepped up to the plate. And yes, you put information out there And I'll admit this, you wore my ass out of interviews, you hounded me, but don't ever think I didn't use you as well to get the information I needed. Now, the investigators were able to determine that this group of juveniles were involved in committing burglaries and robberies, which they were referred to as a lick. Now, although we had out there that was gang related, we have nothing specific to say that it was any rivalry or anything to such that cause. But however, each and every one of them in some shape or form is associated with a gang. Basically, simple terms, there is no honor among thieves. And at some point, these three individuals turned on our three victims and murdered them. Two of them right there. They fled the scenes, but left a lot of evidence in their wake. Through the cooperation of the agencies that I previously mentioned and my office, we were able to begin compiling all of the evidence and finding these killers. Now, we were shocked and saddened by the violence, as all of my citizens, because we are shocked not only are the victims juveniles, but the murderers are juveniles as well. I know each of you in the media here and viewers out there probably heard us in law enforcement or even in community events talk about what is the problem. And I'm going to go ahead and address the first thing that I know it's going to come up, because there are individuals out there viewing, and to include some of you media, that want to blame the one thing that has no ability or the capacity to commit the crime itself. And that's the gun. These individuals committed the crime. Now, what's the solution? I wish I could give you that answer, because this world would be a whole lot better. But the fact is, society fails it. We do not hold our juveniles accountable. We minimize their actions. I'll tell you why I say this. Last night, I had to stare into the eyes of two mothers. It's not their fault. Because what I saw last night was two mothers who are willing to give their sons everything, do everything for them, and give them their own lives. But just like you and I, no matter how much we teach them, because I am a father, I am a father, and I cannot fathom what they were going through. These mothers and mothers across this nation need all of your help. Because here's what infuriates me. I've got a particular media who has a problem with putting photos of juveniles out. Now, we do it what the law says we can do. Put these photos out. I put myself in the shoes of those mothers because I heard one of them say it. I wish I would have known what this one was doing and who they were, because my kid never would have hung out with them. And to think and believe to minimize any actions that is criminal of a juvenile is a disservice and frankly, stupid to think. We need to hold them accountable. And then hope that we can change them. I'm not going to be able to give you everything because there is a third suspect that we were unable to locate last night. But however, you will receive, you may already have it, the probable cause affidavit that tells you the details of the events that occurred. I will tell you this. I already told you of the witness hearing the gunshots. That is when all three were killed. The suspects were in the vehicle. This individual, who is a juvenile also, is who we're looking for. Now, I'm talking to the viewers. Some of you know him, you know where he is, and you need to turn him in. Now, I will find him, and justice will be completed. As you can imagine, my thoughts are all over this page right now. Fighting these type of crimes requires all of us to come together as a community. And Marion County stepped up to the plate. And we've been successful. Now, I know I've forgotten something and I'm missing something, so I'm going to open up the floor to questions.
Any type of motive given?
Mentioned it, robbery.
Woods.
Go to her first.
I want to clarify. I know you said the suspects were in the vehicle. So are you saying all 6 were in there at one time?
Yes, ma'am.
And so the 3 individuals, the 2 that are in custody and this person, they turned on the other 3 in the vehicle. And that's how this unfolded.
That's correct.
In the commission of a robbery of the 3 victims?
Not going to get into too many more of those details because of the third suspect being out.
Sheriff Wood, Ted Williams with Fox News. Did the suspects and the 3 dead teens, have you been able to determine how long they've known each other?
Short time?
Sheriff, you mentioned the gun. Do we know how the suspects got a hold of the weapon?
Car burglaries. Yeah. Ain't that right? All the gun laws we got in place didn't prevent it, did it? Neither will any new ones. Because here's the fact. The bad guy is going to get a gun no matter what law you have put in place. These juveniles shouldn't even possess a handgun. But they did. And I'll go back to you. Add your question. A simple burglary, as some people will say, but I don't consider anything simple when it comes to a burglary. The law allows me, I'll plaster their face up on this page, up on my page, up on media. I will hand it out if the law allows me, because parents have the right to know who their kids are hanging out with and preventing this.
The sheriff is great. Love it.
I personally didn't speak to them about the arrest. It was immediately after the interviews in which I talked to the mothers. But really, they don't have a whole lot to say. If you're a parent, put yourself in their shoes. Holy hell. Panic. I'm scared to death as a parent. Embarrassed, ashamed. What do you think they're going to say?
Sheriff, Woods, do you know if these three juveniles will be tried as adults?
All right, state attorney's office is reviewing that right now. Okay, so I don't want to say yes and then it turn around no, then you'll end up calling me a liar at some point. So
What does to kind of piggyback off that, so what does accountability look like for you? I know you talked about juveniles being held accountable for their actions.
I will refrain an awful lot on that answer to this question, to the full extent of the law. Okay, don't take me wrong. I might be hard on people, but I also have a heart. And I've already told you, I am a father. But here's the one thing my boys know. Grow up, the freaking barber had my permission to whip their asses. And not only that, when this stuff came up on TV, I pointed them. I said, you don't have to worry about the law coming after you. Full extent. Because they took a life. Are y'all comprehending that? They took a life without thought. They deserved the full extent of the law.
Did you come in contact with these teams before? Because I see the pictures. Are these mugshots from previous incidents?
I personally haven't, but have we? Minimum contact. I can tell you right now. I know somebody over here had a question.
Sure.
Andy?
Do I understand correctly that the three victims were an active part of crimes prior to their deaths with these three? Is that correct?
I don't want to give too much detailed information, okay? But let me put it this way. My dad was a fireman. Always said, where there's smoke, there's fire, okay? Folks, don't ask dumbass questions. And Andy, I apologize. But really? Do I have to spell it out to you? What do you think they were doing? They're associated with a gang. And I've told some of y'all in interviews, gangs don't go to church on Sunday and then preach the gospel for the next 6 days. They're gangs because they commit crimes. How simple is this idea? Where are we losing it? And I know we're going long, but this is my press conference, not yours.
Sure.
Yes.
If all six were committing crimes, do you know why the three turned on the other three?
I can't divulge that. I wish I could tell you. I'll tell you when we get this one. Okay. And since day one, I've wanted to tell you anything. They have had a leash on me like you wouldn't believe. Next. Let's get somebody new.
Do we know the timeline of the three victims in terms of how they were shot? Was it all at once? And then
Hold back. You heard the bosses.
Do you know how they were apprehended? Were they hanging out somewhere? How were you able to catch up with them?
Do you want to? Go ahead.
The one subject on the previous photo, Rob Robinson, was in custody already at the juvenile detention facility. And the Christopher Atkins will be located at his house yesterday after serving search warrant.
So they weren't on the run or anything. Were they even surprised to even see you show up?
Yes, they were very surprised we showed up.
Are you able to make any statements as to what they said?
I'll leave that to the sheriff.
No, you'll get that eventually. We told you he was in DJJ. He was arrested by OPD the next morning after the murder.
what were the charges on that?
And an affray at the school. Oh, that's what I call a light bulb coming on right there. Remember I just talked about minimizing and holding students accountable? Our school districts, not just here, I'm not going to point out just mine. School districts across this state and across this nation need to quit minimizing the actions of their students. Hold them accountable. That's where the failure is.
Do we know where the last suspect was seen?
You want to get,
The last place he was seen.
we're going to hold that one.
Did all three have guns? or-
Boy, he's not playing around at all. Not one bit is he playing.
All right. Some of that I'm not going to answer. Some of it I will. The one I will is the two confessed to shooting our third victim in the trunk.
How many guns were involved?
I'm not going to answer that one. I appreciate your questions. You wouldn't be doing your job if you didn't ask. Any others?
Sheriff, is the third suspect, does the public need to worry about him?
No, the community doesn't need to worry about them outside of, I want them to find them. That's what they need to worry about, is locating him for me. And they do. If you ain't ever watched my Wanted by Woods Wednesday, that's successful and they find them. I'll allow one more.
Are these juveniles all students at the same school?
No. All righty. Thank you.
All right. So that is Marion County, Florida. They're still looking for that third person in connection with the murder of the 3 teens. So court is still in recess for about another 35 minutes or so. I am going to end this live so that I can start a new one, part 2, for the afternoon. So I hope you guys will come back. I appreciate you being here. Thank you so much. Please give the video a like, and I'll see you back here in about 30 minutes.